1 week of Best Ball Mania 5 is in the books, which means we are back for another edition of Best Ball Breakfast. I'm going to rip a solo draft. Then we're going to have Shawn Siegele swinging by for a draft. And then, of course, Pat Kerrane, the BBM3 champ, will be hopping in for a draft. It is a great day to be great. As my friend Ian Harditz would say, let's rip some Best Ball Mania drafts.
My slow draft rooms are so much different than my streamed drafts.
Does no one realize Underdog's half-point PPR? Idiots!
Damn, bro. You know ball. Hope you guys packed your bags. I packed my bags. No, I mean, I literally packed my bags. She kicked me.
Dude, Star Method's legit. Only way to max out every contest in a plus EV way.
Week 17, you still gotta get there, bro.
We have a finite sample. We only have so much samples. Is it negative EV to stream all your drafts?
We just don't know.
All right, GMs all around. B-Spurf, what is up? Tyler, we got Ori in the chat. Shout out to Ori. Deposit Kingdom royalty. I saw your post this morning. Ori continues to be shedding the pounds and is now in the best ball streets. You love to see it. Bindles, GM, what is up? John, Achievers, GM. Look at all these GMs flying around. We even got a Grand Rising. I like that. Yeah, forget these GMs. Let's get a Grand Rising going here. MJ wants me to teach him how not to be a running back slappy with these wide receiver prices in the 3rd and 4th round. Sure, I can do that for you. GMs. How are we doing? Let's see those week 17 divisional stacks. What are we getting? Are we going to get the schedule on Thursday? Has that been announced yet? I feel like that's when people are assuming it's going to come. How is that like not a fixed date on the schedule? That's like so weird. So much of the NFL is determined, months, years in advance, all of this stuff. But the schedule, they're like, oh yeah, just whenever we get around to it. But yes, we are very close to having the schedule so we can dig our teeth into all of these stacks. But yes, for now, we got to just focus on our divisional stacking like we did in the big board. Us correlation bros have to kind of gal brain our way into these correlations before we have the schedule. And that reminds me, I've been making a ton of videos on the Deposit Kingdom channel. I'm most excited about the video I'm working on this week because we have a new puzzle to solve for with this Best Ball Mania structure. We have flatter payouts, and it is brought into question, is week 17 still all that matters? And there's a little drumbeat building for the importance of week 16. So I'm going to dig into all of that this week, refresh kind of the structure, why it matters in the first place. And then if week 16 has legitimately made a case for being on equal footing with week 17 correlation as we all try to win this contest and optimize for winning this contest. So make sure you're subscribed to the Deposit Kingdom channel. Going to be working on that video pretty much all day tomorrow. And then we'll hopefully have that out for you guys later this week. But having a lot of fun. Neil Farley had a really good tweet about it. I've been talking with Leone, Michael Dubner, all the smarter people around me in my life. So we can kind of get to the bottom of this. And then I can hopefully share what I figured out with you guys and inform our drafting going forward. So looking forward to that. This is so funny. I completely missed this. I saw like a Mina Kimes tweet. Cooter Doodle put it in the newsletter today. Apparently there were lots of Giselle jokes that made Tom Brady want to crawl out of his skin. I am going to have to circle back and watch that because Tom Brady looking uncomfortable in the pocket. That is a great joy for me to be able to watch. So yeah, I am definitely going to seek that out. How much money do we need to give you to draft Marvin Mims in the first round? The thing is like, if I did that, then the draft is probably getting thrown out. And so I don't know. It would be an outrageously large number. Like you would literally, because then I'm ruining the whole draft. I'm getting like a mark on my account, but I'll give you a number. I will take Marvin Mims in the first round if you give me $5,000. That is my number for taking Marvin Mims. Because otherwise, like the joke's not even that funny. But if you have so much money that you can just splash around on a bit like that, yeah, I'll draft Marvin Mims in the first round today for $5,000. Is PETA week 16, bro? We're going to find out. Yeah, this is ultimately what it's going to be. The coolest party trick ever, which used to be rattling off all the week 17 matchups. Well, guess what? Now you show up to your parties you show up and everyone there already knows the week 17 matchups. It's no longer cool. You know what you have to do now? You have to memorize the week 16 matchups as well. That is how you impress the people at the party. And so all of us are going to have to get smarter. Our memory palaces are going to have to expand to include more. So yes, well, like I said, I'll have more about that on later this week on the Deposit Kingdom channel. Again, make sure you guys are subscribed over there. Had 2 videos out last week. Let me get my overlays correct here as we hop into a draft. We had the 22 draft risers to target before they got too expensive. And then in part 2, we had 20 fallers to avoid until their price settled in a more palatable price range. Got lots of good feedback on those videos. Obviously, some of the risers have already blown past my projections. You know, a guy like Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman are flying up there. So that initial period of really being able to take advantage of mispriced ADPs is probably close to slamming shut. But I do think there are still some lingering values. There's still definitely players I expect to rise. It's just not the snap risers. You know, the Xavier Worthy, the Ladd McConkey, the Keon Coleman, the Ray Davis, the Kamani Vidal. You know, those guys have already snapped, risen, but I still think there's some meat on the bone, some values you can take advantage of right now that won't be there later in the drafting season. And then on top of that, another video I'm going to have coming out on the Deposit Kingdom channel. I did a draft on Friday where my goal was to reverse engineer kind of the perfect early draft. So the thought being like, how do we take advantage of the things that are in drafts right now that might not be available later, and then planning that out ahead of time so you could think through your structure knowing, hey, I want to do a Jaden Daniels backstack with Ben Sinnott and Luke McCaffrey. If I know I'm going to try to accomplish that, what other things should I be considering? So I basically laid out an entire draft plan and then went into the draft to see if I could execute it. And I think you guys will enjoy the results of that experiment. That video should hopefully be out tomorrow on the Deposit Kingdom channel. So going to have lots of mixture of content and drafts this year. Obviously live streams here on Mondays, but then also messing around with cutting up some pre-recorded drafts over on the Deposit Kingdom channel. We are off to the races, though, in this first Best Ball Mania 5 draft. This morning, I have the Influencer 112. First round is almost done. I do not believe through my 9 or 10 BBM drafts so far that I have had a 112 slot, so this should be fun. We'll see what Hawkberg does here at 111. He goes A.J. Brown. I think I'm going to do Gibbs and Drake London here. I have a hard time envisioning Marvin Harrison getting more expensive. I guess I have a hard time envisioning any of these guys getting more expensive. That's what's kind of funny about the ADP prediction game. Some of them, you have extreme confidence, whether you look at what happened, you look at where rankings have them, and it's yeah, Kyren Williams is going to fall. The Bears pass catchers are going to fall. But some of these guys, I'm having a hard time knowing who is actually pushing up into this 1-2 range. Because to me, this first round is a pretty clear-cut tier. And then I think you start to introduce some question marks. After A.J. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson come off the board, when you are down into Drake London, Marvin Harrison, Jonathan Taylor territory, to me, that feels like a pretty clean tier break. But I'm who based on news, who based on coach speak, industry enthusiasm, who could actually push up into the first round? It's probably a running back, right? If we get reports that Jonathan Taylor or Barkley, is back to their former selves, they're in the best shape of their lives. I'm trying to tell myself a story of what pushes one of these guys into the first round, because right now it just feels like such a flat tier. And it felt like this in the big board too. And people were pushing back and kind of complaining man, these round 2 wide receivers, it's overvalued. Are we really taking Marvin Harrison at 14? Are we really taking Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk at 19 and 20? And it's yeah, because we don't know who else to put there. So I do find round 2 to be a very interesting round. And I think you could probably gal brain and say, hey, I would rather have 2 of these early 3rd round picks than I would necessarily just lining up to play the ADP game with everyone else. Yeah, Neighbors is a fun one. I've selected Neighbors a bunch through my early drafts. I did just notice Davis Mattek in this draft, of course. I completed a Dynasty trade with Davis Mattek this morning. He sent me Jaleel McLaughlin for the 407. And I snap accepted that. I think 407 in rookie drafts. I mean, you're looking at some like really, really deep running backs. You're probably looking at like the Isaiah Davis, or maybe not even him. Like I think you're probably in what, like Audric Estime territory there. So I was happy to complete that deal. And then Davis, in true Davis fashion, tried to then send me a worse offer right after. And then he wanted my 307 for Kenny Gainwell. And then I said, no, that's a bridge too far. That's a bridge too far. But I will give Davis credit. He's constantly working the Dynasty trade lines. I'm someone who will look at trade offers. I will respond to them. I will generally try to counter, but I am not a Dynasty trade originator. I had another interesting thing happen in my other Dynasty rookie draft over the weekend. I'm now only in 2 Dynasty leagues, but I have this long-standing Superflex league that I've been in for almost 10 years now. And I had the 103. And I was fully expecting to get one of Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors, most likely Malik Neighbors. The 2 teams at the top of the board in this Dynasty draft were really hurting at quarterback. So I'm like, there's maybe a chance it goes Caleb, Jayden, and I get Marv at 3. But at the very worst, it'll go Caleb, Marv, and I'll get Neighbors. And I have a pretty good quarterback room. The 2 wide receivers went 1-2. Marv and Neighbors went 1-2. My quarterback room is Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers. But I'm not passing on Caleb Williams at 1-3 in a Superflex Dynasty league. So I ended up grabbing grabbing Caleb Williams, and then I flipped Aaron Rodgers for Keenan Allen, which I think kind of worked out. You know, I didn't get the wide receiver depth, so kind of pushed my youth more toward quarterback, and then flipped Rodgers for a win now wide receiver piece in Keenan Allen. So there you go. For all the Dynasty heads out there craving Dino content, that is my Dynasty update of the day. And we're about to be on the clock at the 3-4 turn here. We started Jahmyr Gibbs and Drake London. We have a bunch of quarterbacks on the board right now. ADP wise, you know what? How late is this for? Yeah, so Tank Dell goes. I've been selecting Tank. Man, this is a piss boy room. Goodness gracious. I just noticed that. Mother of God. Holy cow. Look at that run. I feel like Josh Allen at 36. I'll take a little Josh Allen ADP value. And then, wow. I mean, wide receiver got wiped. I think I'm just getting out ahead of this. I'm going to take Zay Flowers here as well, a little bit ahead of ADP, because I see what's going on here. I think, do I even have this clip in here? Where is this old clip of mine? We have to go find this clip. Here it is. It was funny because I had even mentioned this with Shawn, where I was like, I don't think I've been in a wide receiver avalanche room yet this year. You know, other than FF Links out of the 3-hole, who we do need to appreciate, has gone Breece Hall, Barkley, and Derrick Henry. We'll see how that works out for FF Links. But yeah, this feels good. I was like, where are the wide receiver avalanche rooms? Are those, just a figment of our imaginations, a hallmark of the past? But apparently they are alive and well in 2024. So thank you for that, guys. Let's see here. I think I owe you guys a coffee pour too. Here we go. feel like that was a classy target pour. Tyquan Thornton in round 12. Guess what? We have so many new versions of Tyquan Thornton. You know, if you love Tyquan Thornton, but don't want to have to draft Tyquan Thornton, can I interest you in Jalen Polk? Can I interest you in Javon Baker, a man who can make people rise from their wheelchairs? Can I interest you in KJ Osborne, who people do forget is on the New England Patriots? There are so many candidates to be this year's Tyquan Thornton. It does frustrate me. This was something I talked about in the Fallers video. I mean, I included a clip from Jared Mayo that the Coach Speak Index had flagged, talking about, you know, Drake Maye potentially not starting. And when you listen to those quotes from the team, it seems very likely that Drake Maye isn't going to start. It seems like the team wants Jacoby Brissett to start. You know how like most teams are like, oh man, I hope our rookie quarterback is ready to go so we can like use him. And then if not, we have this fallback. The Patriots seem like they actually want to start Jacoby Brissett, which is kind of scary. And it is a bummer because the way the ambiguity on the Patriots receiving core works out right now, coupled with the influx of talent and the prices, make Drake Maye back stacks incredibly attractive. From a price standpoint, from a safety valve standpoint, from what it could mean if Drake Maye is actually good, if he's rookie year Justin Herbert, if he gives us shades of early Josh Allen, that could provide a windfall at those prices. However, we don't know if he's going to fucking start. Jacoby Brissett could play 10 games this year. And that lowers, obviously, the ceiling and the potential for Drake Maye, but also for the entire offense. Because Jacoby Brissett, while competent, isn't going to, you know, result in those high-end outcomes, those big plays that we know Drake Maye's profile suggests he can give us. So that's a frustrating thing right now for me, is I want to be able to have that safety, backdoor safety stack with Drake Maye, but I do think we need to be a little patient with it right now until we get a little bit more confirmation that he is tracking to be the week 1 starter, which I don't have confidence in right now. And the whole reason is we talk about the benefits of drafting early. One of the negatives of drafting early, and we talk about this in the video, Leone featured it in his Best Ball Manifesto, is avoiding dead roster spots. And it sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious. And yet it still is easy to try to get fancy play syndrome in these drafts, trying to get too cute. Next thing you know, you're drafting guys who aren't even active, who aren't even playing. And I think Drake Maye falls into that bucket right now, which is unfortunate because he would be kind of a screaming late round quarterback target otherwise. All right. The Piss Boy room is alive and well. I was hoping James Cook would fall to me at 60. I have not been a James Cook buyer, but with a Josh Allen team, I would have been happy to do it there. Also was obviously hoping that Dalton Kincaid would maybe fall to me. He does not. But we are going to grab a tight end with one of these picks. And then we should probably grab a wide receiver. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. We already have Drake London. I don't mind setting up a double stack. I think Kirk would actually pair well with Josh Allen as far as where Kirk's going. We're going to be waiting on QB2. And now we just need to debate our second wide receiver selection here. You know, by rank, we have Addison, Rome. I've been waiting on Rome. I got my first Rome share the other day at 67 or 68. I think I am going to go ahead and grab Jordan Addison here, who just strikes me as a perfectly cromulent early round 6 selection. I'm still into Jordan Addison. I think he has breakout potential in that Minnesota offense as a year 2 guy who flashed in year 1. Not as fun and as sexy, and obviously overpriced in this room, but we're in a wide receiver avalanche room. So Jordan Addison, I'm having to select 10 picks ahead of ADP because of this drafting room. Yeah, holy cow. People pointing out Josh Jacobs at pick 48. Man, wow. We are so back. We are so streamed drafts are so back. Dalton Kincaid went at 45. Xavier Worthy went at 52. I wrote about him today in the Fantasy Life newsletter. Obviously just an insane rise in his ADP, and even then going ahead of his ADP. He had an ADP of 62. He went at 52 in this draft. Has already fully flipped Rashee Rice and Marquise Brown. Man, that happened quick. Yeah, and this is a good point. Ryan says, do you think JJ starts week 1? I do. And that's the thing about those late round quarterbacks. And I've been surprised that JJ's price hasn't been a little more expensive. JJ McCarthy, ADP of 181. None of the ranking sets, ETR, leg up, have really bullish ranks on him. So there's no catalyst for really pushing up his ADP right now. And because I guess I am confused. I know he doesn't have the rushing upside. He does have the game manager stigma. But my thought was, with how many intriguing stacking partners there are, and him going into one of the best possible landing spots for a rookie quarterback of potentially ever, like outside of Caleb Williams. I mean, you're going to be playing all these games in a dome. You have the best wide receiver in football. You have Jordan Addison. You're going to get TJ Hawkinson back. You have an offense that wants to throw a ton. You have a good pass catching back in Aaron Jones. To me, I do think JJ McCarthy is going to be a riser in ADP, but I'm guessing it's going to be a slower burn because people don't seem as excited about him as me. But he would be another viable late round quarterback to pair with like Josh Allen in this build. If someone went rogue and drafted Kirk Cousins and sniped me, I think I would be perfectly content with JJ. But yeah, that is the difference of how I'm viewing JJ versus Drake Maye. Drake Maye still has, I guess their ADPs are right next to each other. 182 for Maye and 181 for McCarthy. And I feel much more confident about McCarthy playing 17 games than I do Maye. And that's why Bo Nix is actually pretty interesting too, because he has an ADP of 207, and I'm more confident about him playing 17 games than I am Drake Maye. Thoughts on 4 running back builds? So just in general, like I said for FF links here, let's see how this works out. And I think starting 3 running backs in an Avalanche room is playing with fire, but you can always pull it off structurally, right? Like the principle for structure is always the same regardless of the room. And that is quantity or quality, not both. If you go for high quality running backs, which FF Links has here, Breece Hall, Barkley, Derrick Henry, then you can't have a large quantity of running backs. If FF Links just takes one more running back flyer at some point during this draft, preferably after round 10, I think structurally they have landed the plane. We can debate if they got shut out of wide receiver firepower, but structurally, I think they will have allocated their draft capital in a smart way. The same thing with 0 RB. You don't have high quality running backs, so you're getting a larger quantity of them. You're getting 6, 7 potential running backs to make up for your lack of quality. So I'm always going to be like that. How do I feel about 2 early quarterbacks? It's not my favorite thing, but if you don't take another quarterback, a third quarterback, then at least you're, allocating your positional capital in a way that makes sense and allowing for you to make up at other positions with quantity. Bindle's hype on Legette. I definitely like Legette. I'm about to be on the clock. In a normal room, maybe I would have been able to get Keon Coleman here. Keon Coleman's ADP is 79. I guess not even in a normal room. So I am running out of stacking candidates for Josh Allen. Holy cow. This has been an insane avalanche here. Oh boy. All right. Rank by ADP. Feel like this could be a running back pick. I feel like this is how you thumb your nose at a wide receiver avalanche. You take Najee Harris. You take Najee Harris in a wide receiver avalanche room. You know what? Christian Watson is like not my favorite guy. I prefer Jayden Reed a couple rounds more. I prefer Dontavian Wicks multiple rounds later. And yet, if I'm going to get my exposure on Christian Watson, it's probably close to ADP in a wide receiver avalanche room. We also get some divisional correlation. Where were my divisional correlation bros? We got Detroit. We got Minnesota going. I'll give you a little Christian Watson here. The only wide receiver in sight on this board. Tough room, but here's the team through 8. Josh Allen, raw dogging it at quarterback, 2 running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris, who Arthur Smith is going to make great again. Wide receiver, Drake London, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Christian Watson. Tight end, Kyle Pitts. This team has Xavier Legette written all over it. Bindles, all over it. Thank you, Tyler. Beg in the chat to like the video, or Pete will have another easy roast item to hit on next Netflix next year at the Piss Boy Roast. That's what we need. Organize the underdog roast. How fun would that be? Can you imagine that? An underdog roast, and it's just roasting various drafters, personalities in the space. Nick Rudman is the MC. Sounds like a grand old time. Let's make that happen. What's going on with Davis? Why is he freaking out? Amon-Ra, Debo, Cooper Kupp takes Patrick Mahomes. And then got shut out of all of the wide receivers. Misses Xavier Worthy coming back in the 5th. Should have pulled the trigger on Rice or Marquise Brown, who then gets sniped and then is forced to take Ladd McConkey. All right, Davis is down bad in this draft. Thank you, Davis. Chris Diaz says, will I be drafting any Michael Penix Jr.? I'm elevating the discourse. I'm not reading his comment. That's for the visuals. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see how Chris Diaz spelled Michael Penix. If you're an audio listener, you get my censored version. Thomas says, Christian Watson has been my St. Bernard in a wide receiver avalanche more often than I care to admit. Which is funny, right? Because in general, what happens in wide receiver avalanches is, wide receivers get pushed up. The irony is I find Christian Watson's ADP to already be juiced up just in a vacuum in regular rooms. And yet in this wide receiver avalanche room, he wasn't getting pushed up for whatever reason. Yeah, I agree with this take from Spurious. The NFC North might have the most talented division in the league. Not bad to stack up. You also get a bunch of those dome games with Minnesota and Detroit, which is nice. Yeah, 4th round Josh Allen. That's the one thing that can happen in these avalanche rooms, right? You can get prices on players that a regular room is never going to give you. I'll tell you what, like when you draft Best Ball Mania teams in August, no one is going to let you have Josh Allen in the 4th round. Wide receiver avalanche drafters do not like Christian Watson. I will definitely be underweight Christian Watson this year. All right, let's see what we're going to do here. Quarterback, I still don't think we need to worry about anything. We have late stacks options open. Could even end up doing something Jared Goff with Gibbs if we wanted, but nothing we need to force at quarterback. Tight end, this is kind of a dead range. I think if you get shut out of early tight end and you want to take sprinkles on Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, don't mind that, but I don't need to force that right now. Which pushes me back to running back and wide receiver. I think we'll just kind of keep picking our spots here at wide receiver. I have not selected Khalil Shakur, but at this point, wide receiver avalanche don't have any other stacks with Josh Allen. And if I am not going to have a big bag of Keon Coleman, I think having some Shakir in this context makes sense. And then let's see here. We'll grab Brian Robinson this time. I normally have been clicking Chase Brown over him, but there's good people on both sides of that debate. I need a little bit of Brian Robinson in my life, so we'll select Brian Robinson here. So the team through 10 rounds, we're trying to battle in this avalanche room. We are up to 5 wide receivers, so we're trying to keep pace with the avalanche while scooping up some other values. We got Josh Allen at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs, Najee Harris, and Brian Robinson at running back. Wide receiver, Drake London, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, Khalil Shakur, and tight end, Kyle Pitts. A roast of BBM winners. That could be good. Yeah, I mean, it's like, who do you roast? You roast the people who are so fabulously wealthy and or successful that you don't feel bad just really digging the knife and trying to get to the bottom of every one of their last insecurities and flaws as a human being. Because at the end of the night, you're still going home to your pillow of multi-million dollars. It still blows my mind that our BBM 4 champ, Fareed Shaheed, goes to sleep each night. Sometimes his girlfriend, I presume, nestled next to him on the bed. And he's sitting here falling asleep thinking, remember when I won $3 million with that best ball team that had Jordan Love and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed on it? And right next to him, his girlfriend doesn't know that he won $3 million. I still think about, that is my new Roman Empire. That is my best ball Roman Empire, is Fareed Shaheed winning $3 million and not telling his girlfriend or his mom. Incredible. If you guys don't know what I'm referencing, I posted a clip on my Twitter a little bit ago. There's a video in the shorts here too, but I did a best ball after dark with Fareed a few weeks back, and he revealed to me that he has told very few people in his life. People on the internet obviously know, in our circles know, but the people closest to him, the women in his life, do not know that he won $3 million, which is either the most insane thing or the most baller alpha shit. Probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Our champion, Fareed Shaheed, I tip my cap to you, sir. Who won the last BBM? Fareed Shaheed. Super cool dude. Very cool dude. If you guys are YouTube members, you can watch my interview with him from the other night. One of the perks of being a YouTube member, you select join down below. You hit the best ball value hounds tier. That'll get you a few things. It'll get you access into the best ball breakfast channel within the Deposit Kingdom Discord. You sync your YouTube account with your Discord account, and it will unlock that channel. That's where I tip people off when I'm jumping in these drafts. Unfortunately, this morning when I tipped off, there were only 2 spots available, but that's where you can get tipped off there. And then it will also give you access to the entire Best Ball After Dark archive. So once a week, I do interviews from people around the fantasy and best ball sphere, have conversations. Sometimes we draft. I did one with Leone on Friday night, had a fun conversation with him. We were talking various best ball strategy stuff, best ball meta for 2024, and then we hopped in a draft. So yeah, that's all content you can get with your Best Ball Value Hounds YouTube membership. Highly recommend it. Good bang for your buck if you want some extra shows, a Discord community, and getting tipped off to those drafts. Also merch discounts as well. You can get a merch discount on our hot best ball merch. All right, let's see what we have going on here in the 11th and 12th round. The one nice thing about wide receiver avalanche rooms is eventually people start selecting running backs. Like you look at Kish here, who started 0 RB, has now taken 6 straight running backs. Kamara, Ramondre, James Conner, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler. So we will be able to hopefully get some more wide receivers in this range. Yes. FF Links. Yeah. So we have Kindler tilting. What are we tilting here, Kindler? Who did you want? Hang on. I'm on the clock and then we can figure out what's going on here. All right. This is just a quintessential. Okay. I like this spot I'm in now. This is okay. We could get one eat your peas and carrots pick, Joshua Palmer. Let's get a peas and carrots pick here. And then we'll get a fun pick. I think as much as I like Charbonnet a lot, but I think I want to get another wide receiver here. This is going to be Pearsall or Legette for me. I did promise Bindles that this team had Xavier Legette written all over it. I'm trying to think if I have any other kind of stacking considerations to make here. I guess Carolina with my Atlanta stack, right? If we're gal-braining some divisional stuff. And also people just don't seem too hot on Pearsall. He's definitely one of those polarizing players. I'm going to grab Xavier Legette here. So we grabbed 2 wide receivers. The wide receiver room kind of, or wide receiver avalanche chilled out a little bit. So we were able to get Josh Palmer 6 picks past ADP, which I do think is notable in that Josh Palmer has been a riser in ADP, obviously one of the big winners of the draft. And then Xavier Legette, who I like at this cost. I'm fine with in a wide receiver avalanche room. I get him at pick 133 as a pick or an ADP of 140. So here's the team through 12 rounds. We got a 1-3-7-1 build. Josh Allen still holding down the fort for us at quarterback. 3 running backs, Gibbs as our anchor, Najee and Brian Robinson, and now up to 7 wide receivers. So trying to throw quantity at this wide receiver avalanche. Drake London, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, Khalil Shakur, Joshua Palmer, Xavier Legette. This is my my wide receiver diversification room here, getting guys I have not selected. I do not think I had, heading into this draft, a single share of Christian Watson, a single share of Khalil Shakur. I guess those are the only 2. I think I had 1 other share of Palmer. And then we still have Kyle Pitts holding it down. Oh no, Bindles is making a Legette clip. So then the question you have to ask yourself is, Bindles, who I certainly consider part of the ship chasing universe, he is a ship chasing VIP member. Does the ship chasing curse extend to clips that the ship chasing community makes? And I would argue that it does. Because my guy, Alex, AC, who I haven't seen in the chat recently, hope you're doing well, AC, miss you around these streets. He made us a Tyquan Thornton clip. What was it, 2 years ago? And so Alex firmly caught the stench of the ship chasing clip curse. I actually wrote about the, if you're not familiar what I'm talking about over on ship chasing, basically every year for the past 3 to 4 years, the clips we've made have just absolutely mushed the hell out of our favorite players. Basically, the guys we select over and over in drafts, we commemorate that selection with a clip, and boom, it means they're destined to fail. We did it with Laviska Shenault. We did it with Sky Moore. We did it last year with Marvin Mims. Even our ancillary clips, Tyquan Thornton. There's a Greg Dulcich clip. If we make a clip about you, you are donezo. So that's a lot of pressure, Bindles. Although I will say, Xavier Legette, not quite the type of player that we would generally give the clip treatment to. We generally give it to guys from small schools who are highly productive in college. Laviska Shenault was a dominator at Colorado. Obviously, Sky Moore, very productive profile at a smaller school. Marvin Mims, very productive in college. So I don't know if Legette is quite within that wheelhouse, but check that out on the P.O. Box newsletter. I'll drop a link down to that below. This is my personal newsletter that I write every Friday. Whatever's striking my fancy. Sometimes it's about fantasy football. Sometimes it's about dad life. Sometimes it is about whatever else I'm thinking about. Health, fitness. Gave ice cream recipes a week ago. If you're interested in a hodgepodge of Overzet content, you can subscribe to the P.O. Box newsletter. All right, we are heading into the 13-14 turn here. And I believe this will be my spot to get my second quarterback here. We'll see what is available at wide receiver. Probably a decent running back. You know what? I think this works out well. We'll load up on this big Atlanta stack. We're going to grab Kirk Cousins and Tyler Algier here. Tyler Algier slightly ahead of ADP, but these other guys, you know what? Actually, no. We're pivoting. We're going to grab Ray Davis, higher ADP. I'd like to add another Bill to this build because I don't think I'm going to have any other options after Ray Davis. Quick pivot there. I think I do prefer Ray Davis to Tyler Algier because I think it's handcuff plus. I do think Ray Davis could have a role right out of the gate. Whereas Tyler Algier, we know, is going to always have more of a handcuff profile where his high-end outcomes are in the event of a Bijan injury, where I would not be surprised if Ray Davis is the goal line back. There's a wide range of outcomes for Ray Davis. I also think James Cook could hold him off. But we've just seen the Bills' MO over the years, and I love James Cook. He's been one of my favorite players. I selected him a ton last year. I would draft him in the battle royales all the time. The Bills yank him around at the goal line. He also is prone to some fumbling, has dropped the ball in some key spots. He just is never a guy that the coaches have fully wanted to trust. They're rolling out Dusty Latavius Murray and God knows who else at his expense. So to me, 4th round pick in Ray Davis, that's someone the Bills are going to utilize. And on this team specifically, I already have the double stack with the Falcons, but only one other piece with Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir. So I think Ray Davis makes sense for this. I do want to be leaning into as much kind of team level correlation as I can right now before the schedule drops. Oh yeah, Chase Claypool. I included this in the Fantasy Life newsletter today. He's wearing 14. If you guys missed this, the Bills said goodbye to Stephon Diggs by immediately giving his jersey number to a cast-off journeyman wide receiver, Chase Claypool. So we have 4 more picks in this draft. We're at a 2-4-7-1 build. We're good at quarterback. Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins. This is, I've talked about this before, but one really nice thing, when you corner the market on the premium pieces for a pocket passer. So since I took Drake London and Kyle Pitts, you can often get extreme values on the quarterback. And I say pocket passer because people will always talk themselves into any of the, just because you take Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison, it doesn't mean someone isn't going to grab Kyler Murray at ADP. They'll say, hey, he's going to rush. That's how he gets it done. I'll take Michael Wilson, whatever. But with some of these pocket passers, I've noticed it specifically with Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins right now. Like if you take Garrett Wilson, and Mike Williams, and then with Kirk, if you take Drake London and Kyle Pitts, no one else in the room wants to take unstacked Kirk Cousins. That sounds like an awful time. It's really hard to tell yourself a story of how Kirk is getting there without his pass catchers coming along for the ride, which then results in big ADP value. So Kirk had an ADP of 132. I get him at 156. And the temptation when you have Drake London and Kyle Pitts is like, I don't want to lose out on him. Like I had 2 picks at the 11-12 turn that were right at Kirk Cousins ADP, where I took Joshua Palmer and Xavier Legette. The temptation is I got to lock up my guy. I don't want to miss out on the stack. But if you zoom out and say, who actually would want Kirk Cousins? Who's going to snipe him? Either a rogue agent who's probably not building optimally or no one else. So then Kirk Cousins falls all the way back and you get a really palatable price on him. And it was a little easier for me because there are sometimes spots where you say, well, I don't want to get fully shut out at quarterback. But with Josh Allen, and then I also had a couple safety nets. I had Bryce Young potentially to stack with Xavier Legette. And then I had JJ McCarthy if I wanted to stack with Jordan Addison. So I kind of had the luxury there of not having to stress it. Luke McCaffrey goes off the board. I would have certainly been interested in him. We're going to have to think about tight end here as well, but I'm happy to get Juwan Johnson at ADP. I think he's a nice pair with Kyle Pitts. Again, leaning into our NFC South divisional stacking. We now got Carolina, Atlanta cooking here with this. So I'm going to grab Juwan Johnson. And then let's see here. We're good at quarterback. We are going to be pretty much done at tight end, I'm guessing. So running back and wide receiver here, ADP wise, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, Keaton Mitchell. What do we want to do here? By rank, we got Demario Douglas. I'll get another rookie wide receiver in here. I will get Javon Baker. One of these in these wide receiver avalanche rooms, it is hard to get young firepower. Everyone, all the hot, sexy names are going to go way earlier. McConkey, Coleman, Xavier Worthy, but I still want to be actively trying to get some late season upside on this team. I think there's other teams where I've drafted Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, whoever it is, a room full of young pups where Demario Douglas starts to look pretty attractive on this team of, these guys that I think are just going to be on the field, should have a baseline level of targets. In this room, I've already eaten my peas and carrots. I took Joshua Palmer. I got Khalil Shakir, so I want to take some bigger swings here. Javon Baker at pick 181 here, who many think could just be straight up better than Jalen Polk. I think is a nice spot to be in. Starkindler is tilting FF Links. Let's see here. How is FF Links landing the plane on this hyper-fragile build? Jaden Reed, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, then goes 3 quarterbacks from rounds 8 to 11, grabs Dak, Jordan Love, Tua, gets Jacoby, Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen. I mean, this is how you do a hyper-fragile team. Does take Chuba Hubbard in the 15th round. FF Links learning what a wide receiver avalanche room is. I don't like taking 3 quarterbacks in that same range. Like that's it. Both when you are behind at wide receiver, and not to pick on FF Links, but when you're behind at wide receiver, and I think you can get away with 2 quarterbacks in the window there. Like if you double tap Dak and Jordan Love, that's a nice quarterback duo. You can go to war with that duo. I don't think you need Tua specifically unstacked there. So sorry to pick on FF Links this morning. I don't necessarily love that with that construction. This is what happens when you're a stacking slappy. I'm a stacking slappy too, so I say this with love. But when you get shut out on Patrick Mahomes, you start to talk yourself into Kadarius Toney and Justin Watson as late round picks. Nolan suggesting Davis go Will Fuller to complete his stacks here. See, I'm being nice. I'm being kind. It's early in the offseason. I will get more testy and feisty as the year goes on. Like last year, the wide receiver avalanche drafts were really starting to wear on me. They were really beating me down. But this is my first one of the season. I'm just taking it in stride. Flash forward, 3 months from now, and I'll be roasting FF Links on a spit. We don't even need an official event. We will hoist him by his own petard by that point. Two more picks here. Man. And I do, I think running back wise, like I'm obviously playing Gibbs as an anchor. I am going to take one more running back. But man, I'm certainly in like dead roster spot territory for running back here. That does not feel good. Maybe one more wide receiver dart at the end. Yes. And GA says, didn't someone set us off before schedule drop by taking Conklin? Yes, that was Paul in last year's. Was that in Best Ball Mania or Big Board? It might have been. It was one of Big Board or Best Ball Mania. I can't remember. Last round RB is so dead. Christopher, you want to see Testy watch Spags? Oh yeah, I've seen Spags. Spags lose it in his ribs when he gets sniped. You know what? Man, this is a tough spot. I'm going to take a dusty running back. I want you guys to decide. I prefer Jalen Hyatt. Do I do Jalen Hyatt or do I take Rondale Moore for the triple stack with Kirk? But I am going to take Eli Mitchell. Kier, Eli Mitchell, I struggle with because I do think there's a chance he's no longer the RB2, but you can make that case for basically all of these running backs here where there's dead roster spot risk. So I'm going to take Eli Mitchell there. I don't love it, but let's check in on the chat here. We got more triplet. Now we got 2 Hyatts. It's get out of here. It's dead even. Who's going to break the tie? Hyatt. So Hyatt takes a slight lead. Then we have another lead for triples. We're still tied. Break this tie. We got 9 seconds. Hyatt takes a lead. Not Hyatt. Now we're back to even. Moore takes the lead. All right, Moore got it at the last. That was very close. I will say this. I think I will end up clicking Hyatt way more this summer. Like when I need a wide receiver dart late, like I'm going to select Hyatt a decent amount. Whereas the only times I think I'll select Rondale Moore is if it is for correlation purposes. So either with Kirk, whatever the week 17 bring back ends up being, etc. So I'll grab my more share now, and I will have plenty more Jalin Hyatt otherwise. I do prefer Jalin Hyatt in a vacuum, but from kind of a portfolio perspective where I know I'm going to be, which is selecting Jalin Hyatt a lot. I really like him this year, especially if he's just going to hang out in the 18th round. It's kind of an interesting thing too. And it goes back to, I referenced it in one of the early videos, but it was an OG RotoViz article called Avoiding Rookie Derangement Syndrome, written by one of Davis's friends. I believe it was Colum. Who is it, Davis, who wrote that article? You'll refresh me on that. But it was the year that DeAndre Hopkins was a rookie and Alshon Jeffrey was the second-year guy. And everyone was falling over themselves to draft a rookie. What's funny is I feel like over the years, the pendulum has swung, where for a while it was everyone was hip to the second-year breakouts. And it was the second-year guys that were really getting pushed up. And the rookies were actually the values. Because for so long, it was like, yeah, these rookies, they take too long to hit the ground running, blah, blah, blah. I almost now feel like the pendulum, meta-wise, has swung back in the other direction, where now people are overly enthusiastic or so enthusiastic about rookies that it's actually some of the second-year profiles that end up being discounted. And to me, like, Quentin Johnston saw so much opportunity in year one and was a colossal flop. I think you can make the argument that, like, we don't have a big enough picture yet on a guy like Jalin Hyatt, who did flash the few times he was on the field, the few times someone could uncork a deep ball to him. So yeah, I think there is room for upside from Hyatt, especially with that offense just being better with Malik Neighbors there this year. I think that should help out everyone. So yeah, I think I'm going to be pretty high on Hyatt, he says after selecting Rondale Moore. All right, let's name this team. Shawn Siegele will be swinging by here shortly, and we'll rip another Best Ball Mania draft. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be here every Monday morning throughout the summer doing best ball drafts with guests. Shawn and Pat will be here regularly. Always love drafting with them. And we'll, of course, always get a solo draft in as well here on Best Ball Breakfast. Let me get this team named. I'm fairly OCD with my naming conventions here. We have a 2-5-9-2 build. And what did we get here? We ended up, this was a Buffalo Atlanta stack. Another coffee pour? I can do that for you. I do need a little bit more coffee here. We'll take a look at what Davis did here. I also need to do a full recap on mine here real quick. So the final team, it was a 2-5-9-2 build. Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs, anchor running back with Najee, Brian Robinson, Ray Davis, and Eli Mitchell. Wide receivers got to 9 here, battling a wide receiver avalanche. Drake London, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, Khalil Shakur, Joshua Palmer, Xavier Legette, Javon Baker, and Rondale Moore. And then 2 tight ends, Kyle Pitts, Juwan Johnson. I like this team. I think positionally, capital was spent well. Obviously, never fun getting in a wide receiver avalanche and you don't get kind of your preferred targets, but using it as an opportunity to get exposure to guys you otherwise wouldn't. You're forced to take wide receivers ahead of ADP, but then it mellowed out. Then was able to get Joshua Palmer at a value, able to get a couple rookies here who are on the less trendy side, I would say, in Legette and Baker relative to some others, still getting some late season rookie upside there. And yeah, feel great about the quarterbacks. Allen Kirk is a nice 1-2 punch. Kyle Pitts, Juwan Johnson, a nice 1-2 punch. A perfectly cromulent team, albeit not a super sexy one. Let's see what Davis Mattek did. One of our foremost best ball thought leaders here tried to set up his Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford stacks. Wow. Davis did unstacked. No, sorry. No, he has Cooper Kupp. My bad. I was like, I can't imagine Davis doing unstacked Matthew Stafford. The running backs, Pacheco, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Gus Edwards, Jaleel McLaughlin. Davis traded him away to me today in Dynasty and said, I need to get some more Jaleel back in my life. Tyrone Tracy, I was hoping he would fall to me. He's a very fun pick right now. Wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Ladd McConkey at pick 67. Tyler Lockett, Quentin Johnston, Kadarius Toney, tight ends, Brock Bowers, Hunter Henry, and Tucker Kraft. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I probably go. No, I think draft capital. I was trying to say, does this team need Tucker Kraft? Maybe you go one more wide receiver, but I don't mind this team, Davis. I don't mind it. Thank you, Christopher. Copper Price wants me to put some emojis. I'm very judicious with my emoji use when I name. I did the one on ship chasing we drafted the other night. I did do the vomit emoji for the Deshaun Watson pick. But for the most part, I saved the emojis for really special occasions. I think I had like a trash can emoji a couple times last year. When there's a very obvious emoji, a very special event, I will commemorate with an emoji, but I don't just use them all willy-nilly. Eric says Singletary is coaching at Tracy too raw to outright take the job. I don't know. I kind of disagree with that assessment. I do think Tracy is going to have to show a lot to earn the coach's trust. But when you look at the competition there, Singletary has been a guy it's kind of a funny reversal, right? For him, in that he's always been the guy who's wrestled away the job from other guys. You know, the Bills were wanting to use Zach Moss. He wrestles that job away. You know, the Texans are wanting to use Dameon Pierce. He wrestles that job away. So now he's going to be the one in the driver's seat, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Tyrone Tracy is a very talented dude, very athletic, versatile player. I think the thing that's exciting to me about him, and I'm sure we'll talk about him with Shawn a bit this year too, is you don't have a ton of roadblocks to getting on the field. That's our whole issue with our Braylon Allens and Isaiah Davises. It's like, holy shit, it is completely backed up there on the New York Jets running back highway. But what is stopping Tyrone Tracy from even getting some touches right out of the gate? You know, much less really taking over. And so if you get on the field early, if you can earn the coach's trust early, and then you are more talented and more explosive than the veteran, I mean, that's where you start to get some exciting ranges of outcomes. And why I do like Tyrone Tracy versus some of these other guys is I do feel pretty confident he's going to be the running back 2 there. Whereas some of these rookie running backs, you do worry, hey, are they the running back 3? Are you taking on the risk of a dead roster spot when you draft them, which right now I think is a concern. You know, come August, we're going to get so much more information about these guys and where they sit on the depth chart. But that's not necessarily the case right now. So I'm trying to be cautious with guys like Tyrone Tracy, but Tracy has like the ultimate arbitrage on the Vidal team. I think makes a ton of sense right now. All right. It is now time for everyone's favorite portion of the show. It is, of course, the Best Ball Banana Stand with Shawn Siegele. And look at this. I need to get my clips updated here. Let me get the official Best Ball Banana Stand clip. I forgot to play this last week. All right, we are back here with Shawn Siegele. This is the Best Ball Banana Stand where myself and Shawn draft a Best Ball Mania 5 team here on the Pete Overzet YouTube channel. And then we, of course, post the audio on the RotoViz feeds, as well as the brand new Best Ball Banana Stand podcast feed where you guys can listen to this in audio form. Shawn, a week of Best Ball Mania in the books. Excited to draft with you today.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of questions that I want to ask you. So I'm looking forward to that portion of it. I can't stop laughing because, I mean, the intro there with me and the mouth open just cracks me up. But
which intro?
Just the video there where I sound like I'm trying to reach a ball carrier 70 yards down the field with the projection. I love it. I love it.
Speaking of which, I even noticed because, Colm Kelly working on the RotoViz YouTube channel for you guys. And so, Colm knows what he's doing, knows he has to get the titles dialed in, get the thumbnails going. I've even noticed he's tapped you for making some YouTube faces here. Did you feel very silly having to shoot those and send them over to him?
I love what Colin does with those. I always like when we have our stealing banana stuff up because Ben looks like very serious or very intelligent, very locked in. Colin has me like looking at the ceiling and trying to figure out what's happening over here. Yesterday or a couple days ago when we were recording, a bird flew into the window really hard. I feel like Colin's like cut those out and put them into all of them. So no, Colin does a great job. And we've been having a lot of fun on overtime. Danny Kelly came on post-draft to go through some of the landing spots along with his rankings. And he was absolutely fantastic as always.
Yeah, tons of great content over there. I was catching up on some BBM drafts you did with Gretch. You guys posted the audio. I've made it through a couple of those. If you guys enjoy, obviously, these best ball streams, the Best Ball Banana Stand with Shawn, you'll love getting access to Shawn and Ben drafting as well over there. The difference is Shawn pulls the trigger on those drafts, whereas I'm in control here. So, Shawn gets final say in those drafts, but I rarely overrule you, Shawn, but every once in a while, I can break a little tie in one direction or the other.
Yeah. When I'm drafting with Ben, I'm like, oh, if you're rookie again, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, exactly. I did hop us in our Best Ball Mania draft here, Shawn. I'm coming off of a wide receiver avalanche room. It was weird because last week, like our draft definitely didn't feel that way. It didn't feel that way in basically any of my early drafts, but I finally got one where the wide receivers were flying off the board. So we'll see what this one has in store for us. I see lots of badges here, and we're drafting from the 10 spot here, Shawn.
That is one I have a lot of experience with. I don't know that it's my favorite, but some of the drafts have worked out quite well. A couple of ones that Ben and I did were from 10, and we loved those. Pete, are you surprised by any of the early moves here, like early round ADP adjustments post-draft?
Yeah, I mean, I guess surprised is I maybe have been more surprised by guys who I thought were going to move up a little bit more. The biggest risers don't surprise me in that, it's generally very reactive to new information and seeing these really good draft landing spots, seeing Xavier Worthy move up, seeing Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, like these aren't surprises. To me, there have been, like I was talking about JJ McCarthy in the draft before. Let's make our pick here. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs. Who do you like here?
I like both Nacua and Wilson, and I'm going to end up with a lot of Wilson. I kind of go back and forth and try and split him. So, I mean, I talked last week about being comfortable with being, heavily concentrated on certain players, but with those two guys, I want both.
Yeah, let's go. You do have a slight lean to Garrett Wilson in the ranks. I only get to draft with you once a week, so we'll go ahead and grab Garrett Wilson. We can always balance our Pete and Shawn portfolio down the road if we need to, but let's get our guy for now. But yeah, I think a guy like JJ McCarthy, I thought he would be a riser, just people with Jefferson and Addison wanting to stack him going to that great landing spot, but he hasn't budged. So I think those have been the surprises for me. Have there been any big ADP movement surprisers for you?
Well, I guess I am surprised by how people have reacted with Kyren Williams, in that, I mean, he's often in round 3. The dynasty trades with him have been, very favorable if you wanted to acquire him. I mean, I look at it with Saquon Barkley not moving, even though he gets a superior running back dropped in on him, and just the ceiling is so much lower there to start with. So I think that one, not necessarily surprising. I do think it's wrong.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit more here. I assume you are good with Jahmyr Gibbs. We get him past ADP here at pick 15.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, I took Gibbs with Drake London in my first draft this morning. Gibbs with Garrett Wilson feels very fun. But yeah, I think the reason the Kyren stuff is interesting is, and it's kind of a classic market thing that will happen where he was overvalued in big board drafts, in early drafts before the NFL draft, because drafters were not properly factoring in, what was going to happen. Like, he probably should have been going later round 2, or where he's going now. But then it's like the information happens, even though we kind of expected that to happen. We knew they weren't going to just roll into the season with Ronnie Rivers and, Zach Evans behind him. We expected them to draft. But maybe it is because Blake Corum was what I would say he was one of the more name brand running backs in this class. Like, after Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson, I mean, there's running backs we like more maybe, but he was the guy, the Michigan guy, the one everyone saw, in the national championship game being this workhorse. I wonder if it's that name value recognition that has made people have more pause than if it were, even, I'm trying to think of what would be a random bet. Maybe if it was like Braylon Allen or something. Like, I'm just wondering if it is the Blake Corum effect.
Well, I think they used a pick that was a little bit earlier than people were hoping. And, I think that the valuation was okay to start with. I think that we assumed there was going to be somebody there. But part of it, when you're making that pick, you are hoping that they could come out with nothing. I mean, you look at the Dallas Cowboys who needed a starter and came out with nothing. So it's possible that you end up completely whiffing, or it's not there, or it's someone who, like you mentioned, just isn't quite as exciting. I actually really like Corum, and yet I think where he went in the draft probably overstates where he is compared to, the next 5, 6, 7 guys who were all very similar and maybe are not impacting their starters in the same way.
Do you think if the Rams pulled a Cowboys and really didn't select anyone, do you think Kyren would have moved up to like 1.7, 1.8?
Well, the scoring profile is actually very good. And that's one of the elements that I think is probably mispriced now, is even once you lose some of that, it's still going to be good. Whereas the situation for Gibbs, for example, whom we just drafted, I mean, he's going to have to be electric. Now, we expect that to be the case. We expect the Lions to score a ton of points. But yeah, I mean, if they come out with nothing and he's going to be the workhorse again, I guess still, I mean, are you going to be able to pick him ahead of like Puka and Garrett Wilson? No. So yeah, I think that the ceiling is probably in more or less the same spot.
He does go at pick 23 in this draft, which I believe is around where his ADP is settled. We are now on the clock here. ADP wise, Pittman, Kupp, we got, ETN, a couple wide receivers. Who do you think is the pick here at 310?
Yeah, I think it depends. I really like ETN. I think it's got to be one of the receivers. We don't want to be caught out at that position. So Flowers, Higgins, Dell, any of those guys are great for me.
Yeah. Let's do Zay Flowers. He has the highest ADP of these guys. I took Zay Flowers in my first draft as well. I believe you had mentioned last week too that you were a little surprised that the market wasn't fully pricing him up in this range, but you do kind of see his ADP has been inching up. We obviously take him in the 3rd round, but I assume this is much closer to where you think he actually should be valued relative to the market.
Yeah, and I have that kind of group of Flowers, Higgins, and Dell who are all going kind of mid-4th, sort of in the mid to late 3rd, in part because I think the positional needs there should push the receivers up over, some of the other guys, over the quarterbacks, for example, over some of these running backs who went and tend to push them down to us. And so from that perspective, part of it's, I do like all 3 of those guys. Part of it is that I want structurally to make sure that you get the wide receiver.
So now we do kind of have our choice if we want to go Tank or T. Higgins. We also see McBride go off the board early here. Do you have a preference of Tank or T?
Not really. I've gotten plenty of Higgins in the early going, but I mean, he is probably my slight preference. It's too bad to lose McBride there, because it is going to make it now tricky to get kind of the tight ends that we have talked about. But that does also, I mean, it's great to get Gibbs in there as opposed to having all of our drafts be exclusively 0 RB. And then once we have that, it'll be interesting to deal with some of these tight end decisions that, aren't going to necessarily come up when we're a little bit different part of the draft.
Yeah. And I think this room is at least these first 2 picks, Laporta going at 27 ahead of ADP, McBride going at 37. So yeah, we might be in an interesting dynamic there. I've been kind of enjoying it in that I feel like there's so many options between obviously Laporta in the third. You got multiple options in the fourth, multiple options in the fifth. You'll get Kittle sliding. I never necessarily feel panicked about elite tight end. I mean, if you feel super strongly about ranking those guys within that tier, then maybe you get the spooks a little bit more. But I feel like I've been able to accomplish that structural goal without necessarily having to force things too much so far.
And it certainly gives you a lot of options over these first 6 rounds to get where you want to be. It was interesting there, as you mentioned, that McBride does go above Kelsey. I mean, I think that's the right choice, even though ADP doesn't reflect it yet. I guess I would be surprised if it doesn't flip by the time the season starts.
It's interesting too. Yeah, I agree with you. It's also kind of funny in that you would almost think, again, I'm putting myself in the mind of the entire market. I would almost think the ambiguity of the Chiefs wide receiver room would almost push people towards being like, Kelsey's the only sure thing, right? Xavier Worthy's a rookie, mystery black box. We got Rashee Rice, who knows how long he's going to be suspended. Where does Marquise Brown fit in? Boom. Let's vault up Travis Kelce as the one sure thing in this offense. That doesn't necessarily seem how people are reacting to it, though.
I think the pretty clear decline in his performance a season ago and the likelihood that he won't play quite as much as he has in the past. Now, does that mean he's not going to still be one of the best guys? I mean, he obviously is. The great thing about being a Travis Kelce is you can decline quite a bit and still have a big impact on the field compared to most other tight ends. I guess partly I think that even with the ambiguity, the Chiefs have enough weapons now at receiver. If those guys are healthy for a stretch, then they no longer have to funnel targets to him. Where in Arizona, it does seem like it's going to be Harrison and McBride, and that those two guys are going to get almost all of the targets, and that they'll create some problems for defenses where you can't key on them in a way that you would have been able to key on Harrison if McBride weren't there, or that you would have been able to key on McBride this season if they hadn't had that superstar receiver.
You'll also get some interesting dynamics. This is after I said that I don't find myself getting spooked, but if we do see more teams going bully tight end, like the 3-hole does here with Sam Laporta in the third, and then comes back and grabs Dalton Kincaid in the fifth, which triggers Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts snap coming off the board, then maybe I'm going to eat my my statement from earlier. But in most rooms, this has not been the case. But this morning, Shawn, I'm finding these feel like 2023 Avalanche rooms to me.
And those are fun. We got a lot of experience dealing with them, and it makes the double-digit rounds interesting because you often have to move in a slightly different direction than you do in the rest of your drafts that aren't like this, where your late round picks are also very comfortable. We do have a couple of tight ends who are available there. We've got a couple of receivers that I think are fantastic values if we want to continue to get ahead of that position.
I mean, in an Avalanche room, being able to get Worthy here seems pretty good. I also like the Jayden Reed call. Do you have a preference on the click for this team?
I like Worthy.
Yeah, let's do Worthy. He went at, I believe it was pick 52 in the room before. You obviously have a very aggressive rank on him. And, it is, I wrote about it in the Fantasy Life newsletter this morning, where it's like you have gasoline being poured on the fire, where it's like everyone's going to be excited about Worthy as is. Andy Reid comping him to DeSean Jackson, all of this fun stuff. But then the Rashee Rice stuff is what really just opens up the possibilities in the minds of drafters. And initially I thought Xavier was going to settle in the 5th round ADP wise, but that wasn't factoring in perhaps a half season suspension for Rashee Rice. Because if that does happen, I do think we'll get 4th round Xavier Worthy. So late 5th then in that context feels pretty good.
It does. And I have him, I moved him down a little bit just to make it a little bit less absurd where I had him, but still well above where this area is. It was funny when Andy Reid mentioned the Deshaun Watson comp there, or DeSean Jackson, because my first thought was, well, that's great, but that's kind of the floor. And then I went and refreshed myself because you kind of think of DeSean Jackson as this guy who is this elite vertical threat and a little bit of a problem. And down the stretch of his career, it's like you're going to get the 70-yard touchdown or nothing. It turns out, Pete, that he had a fantastic career. He scored a lot of points. If you get DeSean Jackson, you're going to be very happy.
For sure. Kittle does go, so I am eating it on that. We got a couple wide receivers you like up here. Slight ADP value on Kenneth Walker, big ADP value on Rachaad White. Anything you like here?
Yeah, I think it's either Walker or Bowers.
All right, let's do Walker. We'll add Kenneth Walker here. I wanted to mention, so I wrote about Xavier Worthy in the Fantasy Life newsletter, and I included a tweet from the terrific Pat Thorman about DeSean Jackson, in that, a lot of the sentiment you'll hear for people who are down on Chiefs wide receiver is this macro trend of, Andy Reid slow plays these guys. They don't get them out to fast starts. We saw how long it took them to utilize Rashee Rice last year. Well, Pat Thorman, I'll pull up this tweet here because it kind of dovetails with what you were saying too, which I thought was such an astute point by him. He says this was DeSean Jackson was a week 1 starter for Andy Reid, led Eagles in targets, including week 1, and returned punts immediately, which is part of the Andy Reid comp for him, and that we do envision Worthy to be on the field returning punts. So like the DeSean Jackson comps from that standpoint too, of like, no, he's not going to be slow played, he's going to be an immediate weapon, are pretty exciting.
Yeah, and the thing that I've tried to push back on a little bit with this idea that they're going to slow play the rookies or the receivers or what have you, is simply that you got to deal with the strengths and weaknesses that the individual player has. And Rice ended up being very, very good. He probably was somewhat limited in terms of what he could do right away. Obviously, I mean, we can see what some of his off the field decision making is like. That's not necessarily going to leak into the preparation. But I mean, these are two very different guys. And I would claim that, Worthy is a far, far superior prospect. It's going to be a different timeline, or it could be a different timeline. And so from that perspective, it doesn't worry me that much, because I just think we have to treat these guys as very different people and give Worthy the full respect for what he accomplished. And again, you look at the last couple of years, and it's very boom bust in terms of his profile, or very high reward, very high risk. You include that freshman season that I think in some ways gets forgotten about a little bit just because it happened a while back. You compare Worthy to the players going with him, and how good he was early is just so totally different than those guys. And we know that in the vast majority of cases, that kind of thing has been a very strong indicator. We'll see what happens. There are ways in which he could end up being a little more of a niche player than, this valuation indicates. And yet, there's also a way in which he actually challenges those top 2 wide receivers.
Before we make our next pick, I did want to just touch on Kenneth Walker, since we selected him. This ADP, very similar to where he was going last year. He kind of lived at that 5-6 turn, would fall sometimes in drafts, partly because there was some enthusiasm for Zach Charbonnet, but it basically seems like a very similar backfield setup as we had last year. Of course, we do have a coaching and kind of full regime change there, which is interesting. But what is your thoughts on Walker this year being such? It sounded like a pretty big target for you in that range.
Yeah, I think you just want to take the athleticism. You want to take the explosiveness. You want to take the fact that the offense could make a big jump. I think that coordinator and, even, head coaching beliefs, trends, some of those types of things. Walker is a top 2 round talent. If you end up being able to hold off Charbonnet again, if the offense functions more smoothly, you're going to see Walker as this guy who makes the jump in 2024.
We are on the clock. Speaking of Seahawks here, JSN right at ADP. I know you are firmly in on JSN based on your ranking. I assume he's the pick here for you.
Yeah, unless tight end might be more important, but
I think we can get your guy in the next round.
That sounds great. He does have an ADP in the middle of 8. It just in some of these specific drafts, you can get a little bit nervous there. But no, I agree.
So and I do like to we're especially before the schedule, you and I by this time next week, most likely we'll be starting to kind of plot out some stories for how these playoffs can go, how we can, traverse this playoff gauntlet with some of these correlations. Right now, we don't have that. I have really been liking to lean in to as many team level bets as I can early on, knowing that's the one correlation we can hang our hat on right now. So the Kenneth Walker JSN combo here. JSN obviously disappointed last year at a slightly loftier ADP than this. Still the second priciest of the Seahawks wide receivers. It seems like by your rank, you think he should be much higher.
I do. I think that in most seasons, I mean, this has been the thesis all along for these second-year guys, is that when you get prices like this, you have a great chance to have a player who makes the jump, and you're getting a completely different type of scoring profile in year two, and you're getting it at a price that doesn't factor that in very cleanly. And I think one of the things that has happened with JSN is that because there is more awareness now too of this element where if a guy completely busts as a rookie, then you don't really want to chase that, especially now. I think even though it's a pretty minor type of thing, with DJ Chark, you probably don't want to chase Quentin Johnson, or at least you want to get a good price. But JSN's season wasn't like that, right? It was of the fine, not great type of result that it is actually exactly what you want, because you're going to be able to get a good price on it. The guys who are already going in rounds 2 and 3, it's not that you don't want those players. There probably are going to be stars. You want to load your roster up with young players, but to actually get an exploitable price, you're going to have to go with someone who wasn't an absolute superstar. I think when you look at the bigger picture with him, I mean, he's the kind of guy who would make the jump and could massively gap DK Metcalf this year. Now, is that the most likely? No, but you get plenty of insulation against that, or you get plenty of floor that you're working with when you get this price compared to what you have to pay for Metcalf.
I did click Brock Bowers. I knew we didn't even need to have a discussion about that. We took him at 87. Yeah, I did feel fine pushing him around the wrap because we see Curtis Samuel, Deontay Johnson go. I don't think JSN past ADP was going to come back around. Brock Bowers still has a later ADP, 93, but there was no way Brock was going to make it back to us at 106. I've been waiting for the Brock price to settle, and he has been a big ADP faller over the past week since the contest opened. So I am trying to be a little patient here, but I know you are extremely bullish on Brock. And obviously in this build where we didn't get the premium elite tight end, it seems like for you then Brock becomes the way to access that upside after those top 7 guys are off the board.
Yeah, and you look at what's happened with the wide receivers, it's harder to definitively make the case with rookie tight ends that they also are going to score right away. But you look at the big yardage season from Kyle Pitts a couple years ago, you look for the big overall season from Sam Laporta last year, you think about the fact that Brock Bowers is a much better prospect than either one of those guys. I mean, he's the tight end version of Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors, except better. Right. And so especially if you get caught out, I mean, yeah, he's not going to go into a great situation. You maybe have some mild quarterback concerns, especially if they end up juggling guys during the season to find out what some other people have. You have Devontae Adams there. He looks like a massive target hog right away, which is what you really need to have to get a tight end to separate.
Because it seems, I think I know you in that you were going to be bullish about Brock Bowers almost regardless of where he went. How much more bullish would you have been if he went to, say, a cleaner spot? Say he did go to the Jets, like everyone was predicting, or maybe he went to the Chargers or something like that. Would that have changed your valuation, or is it just so much a holistic in a vacuum? This guy is a superstar and he's going to succeed wherever, that you were just going to be equally as excited about him regardless of location?
No, I mean, he'd be higher. I did move him down below Kittle, which pre-draft I had him just very slightly above. I mean, I think that's where you really should be considering them, certainly above players like Evan Ingram, for example. And that's not to say Ingram won't be good again. I mean, he was one of the guys that we kind of liked last year, and that did work out. But when we're making this bet on talent and you still are looking at the potential for a very large target share, I don't think it moves it down as much maybe as people are suggesting. I mean, in Dynasty as well, kind of trying to move in to get Bowers wherever you can.
Gotcha. We are about to pick at the 106, pick 106, slot 9-10 here by ADP. Doesn't seem like there's anything we need to force with quarterback right now. There's a second jet up here in Mike Williams. We got some running backs that could be interesting Anything jumping out to you with this pick?
I don't think so. We're set up very nicely in terms of the build. I might be tempted to take a running back here, even though it's early for the guy I have in mind. What position do you want to attack?
Yeah, we could also, this might be the spot to grab Jayden Daniels.
Let's do
if
it.
we want to get a quarterback upside. I'm kind of thinking through, we have options with Rodgers, with Geno late would be the kind of other two I think we would be interested doing. I don't know if we necessarily want to do a 2 quarterback build with those two. So getting some quarterback upside here, I think makes some sense.
It's also harder to get our 100% Daniels if we don't grab him.
I know we are. He's another one. We were talking at the very top, the guy, and granted, we were taking him ahead of ADP. I thought he was going to be a little quicker riser. I do fully expect him to be a couple rounds more expensive when ADP's close. So I'm happy to keep packing our bags in the triple digits. Like I just don't have anything bad to say about him in this range. I mean, is it going to shock anyone if he outscores Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, and Dak Prescott in year 1?
Well, he's Anthony Richardson with passing ability, so.
So yeah, you mentioned running back. Who is it? You want to grab Chase Brown here?
He was the one I was surprised didn't rise more. And we did take him last week at a price that, didn't end up being a great value compared to how things have shaken out. I really like Zach Moss as well. So anybody who's saying, there's going to be a gap there, it's going to be a clear 1, a clear 2, you should have Moss on every team. I wouldn't go to the point, quite like with the Miami situation where you want a Dolphins back on every team, because in part, there's still some unlikely but really depressing situations where, somehow the Bengals add somebody else who gets in there. But I mean, you look at what this Bengals offense did for Joe Mixon, and, talking about someone who, the stars are definitely aligned in his favor. Mixon now gets to go play for the Houston Texans, another situation where it's not going to take a lot of running back talent to succeed. And so, if anything, I'm higher on Mixon relative to ADP than I've ever been. But I guess I would be surprised if one of the 2 Bengals running backs doesn't outscore the guys getting drafted in rounds like 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. We talked about it a little last week with Chase Brown in this entire backfield dynamic, that so much of that risk is baked out of the equation when they're both going after pick 100. Like when we select Kenneth Walker in the 6th round, we do need him to be the lead back over Zach Charbonnet. Like we can't have a true 50-50 committee. I mean, we would need him to sun run explosive plays in that case. Whereas at pick 101 and 111, like those guys can both pay off their ADP. They can give you weeks at certain points of the season that are really valuable for you. And then that doesn't even include the contingent upside windfall. If there's an injury and the other guy becomes the fullback, then they're just smashing their ADP to such a degree that you wish you had him on every team.
And Chase Brown, again, he offers that combination of explosive speed and workhorse history that it doesn't seem like it's being priced correctly.
Yep. So our team here through 10 rounds, let me pull this up here. We have Jayden Daniels at quarterback, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker, and Chase Brown at running back. Got our 5 wide receivers through 82 picks: Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, and JSN. And we got tight end Brock Bowers. Very fun room. Jayden Daniels, Xavier Worthy, Brock Bowers. Some very, very fun rookie prospects on this squad here so far. And we will make our selection here in the 11th round. Lots of flexibility position-wise, at 1, 3, 5, 1. We're not behind the 8 ball on any positions here. Looks like we could be in the market for another wide receiver at this range. Obviously, some interesting running back names too. Xavier Legette and Jerry Jeudy near your ranks. Jeudy with the slightly higher ADP. Anyone you like?
Yeah, I think that Jeudy gives us a chance to sort of firm out that receiver group and not have to, even at the very end, I really hesitate to throw away picks at receiver. One of the things that pops out very clearly in my rankings is that once you get past the guys that I think you want to target, then the next group of sort of veteran receivers who could fall into some volume really fall down. And so there's this sort of entire band where running backs, a lot of whom, again, I think zero RB is going to be fantastic for this season in this sort of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 range. All of those guys I have pushed up because I have all of the receivers after about Jerry Jeudy really pushed down. So to get him before what I see as a fairly significant tier break and not necessarily add Legette to this team when we have Worthy and Bowers and Jaden Daniels already there, we want to be, somewhat reasonable with how we're approaching those rookies.
Let's see here. This looks like it could be a running back pick for us. We got a couple of rookies in this range. Jaylen Wright, Jerome Ford, if we want another Cleveland guy. What do you think here?
I mean, Ford would be the ADP pick. I really like Wright. He's another one where I think that the price is going to go up.
Yeah. I was working on a piece for Fantasy Life for a project that we're doing, and they were doing kind of a roundtable thing. And, it's hard because it's going to be like an evergreen draft guide type thing, but asking who are you highest on compared to market. And I ended up writing up Jaylen Wright as my answer for that and kind of going through this thing of like, every year, how many times do we do this thing where it's like there's just a few offenses where we know there's going to be a concrete truth. We know the Dolphins running backs are going to score points, and the dynamic isn't that different from last year. And now we have a chance to draft an extremely fast, rookie that the Dolphins traded up for, who also happens to be the cheapest of the Dolphins pieces. And even though the day one depth chart is not going to look as favorable for Jaylen Wright, would anyone be shocked if he led the Dolphins in running back points? Like, obviously Achane is by far the smart money on doing that, but just knowing the chaos of the position and how much opportunity is available, to me, Jaylen Wright is just such an obvious click that the market is never going to get as excited about as they should.
And it kind of goes back to our earlier discussion too, where I think that he should hurt Achane a lot more than Corum hurts Kyren Williams, in part because you're introducing a third guy. And with the situation there in Miami, where they have a lot of needs, and yet they still use that pick, and they said the running back explosiveness is the key thing to us. We can't afford to be in a situation, really even where we go down to one of the two guys. We certainly can't afford a situation where both Achane and Mostert are out. And I wouldn't want to give too much weight to previous injuries, but certainly Achane and Mostert are not guys you're going to be particularly confident in staying healthy. The scenario, even in which both of those guys are out, is not super unlikely. And in that case, I mean, Jaylen Wright isn't like a top 10 back, right? He's probably a top 5 back. Now, there are some red flags with his profile, and yet those red flags, I mean, they go mostly away if you're in the perfect situation. He's a fantastic athlete. He's maybe the biggest explosive play back in the draft. He was drafted into that situation. Yeah, he's going to go up, but also, even once he goes up, you're going to want shares.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the other thing is the Dolphins had one of, if not the highest concentrated offense last year. They had 4 players that they trusted with the ball: Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, and Devon Achane. That was it. They go out and they draft Malik Washington, but even that wasn't a premium pick. They go and get Jonnu Smith in free agency. But this is still a team that now has 5 players, and they all share a very similar attribute, which is insane speed. Mike McDaniels has a type. So there is so much room for even more offense. Even if it gets spread out just a little bit more, you think about how best ball scoring works too, where it's like, you know what, if Jaylen Wright's a 0 for us one week, but gives us 25 the next week, we are okay with that. Yes, I understand if you're in managed leagues and how that could be a frustrating dynamic to deal with, but that's a feature, not a bug in these best ball contests. Let's see here. Speaking of rookie risers, we got some rookie running backs potentially here that we could be interested in. I don't know if we should look to grabbing Rodgers as our second quarterback at this point. What do you think?
Yeah, we could go. Yeah, let's go ahead and take Rodgers.
All right, we'll grab Rodgers. He is a guy, I think we could probably have pushed him to the early 14th, but I doubt Rodgers is coming back to 178. And if we think some of these running back selections are more in a flat tier, I think it probably just makes sense to get our second QB.
And one of the things that I discovered doing the streams with Ben is that I had viewed myself as a little bit of a Drake Maye skeptic. It turns out I'm a Drake Maye super fan. And so I'm going to end up having him and then, guys like Javon Baker on a huge number of teams. It probably wasn't a need or a fit for this roster.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because I was talking about Maye before you hopped on in the first draft. But let's make our pick here. We do see a couple of these trendy rookies go off the board. Ray Davis goes at 13-11. Kamani Vidal goes at 14-1. We're back on the clock. This is a CSV era here. We're not taking this Brian Robinson, just FYI. Shawn. Buck Irving would be one by ADP who would be interesting. Marvin Mims, if we want one more wide receiver, what do you think?
Yeah, let's go with Irving.
Irving, there he is. Bucky has been a guy I've been grabbing a decent amount. He ends up being our fifth running back here to go along with Gibbs, Walker, Chase Brown, Jaylen Wright, and Bucky Irving. Any additional thoughts on Irving right now?
I mean, he's the one where I think the landing spot is huge because you get him early enough to feel like the Buccaneers meant something with the pick, right? He goes in this running back run where he's, sandwiched right in between Wright and Shipley there, a few picks before Ray Davis. I mean, there were other guys. You could take Shipley, you could take Davis, you could take the fast guy in Garendo. I mean, certainly, why teams weren't taking Braylon Allen, that part is hard to understand. Rachaad White was good last year, and he fits a role or a profile that is very good for fantasy. Maybe not as important in underdog, but very good for fantasy, right? He struggled so much in the first half of last season, especially the first third. And then because they didn't have other guys there, he was able to consolidate some. But he's still one of the weaker starting backs in the NFL. In an offense that, they need help at all the positions. They're going to be solid with Mayfield and Mike Evans, but in that NFC South, where you have a chance to win, if you can be a little bit better than average. Bucky Irving looks like a guy who doesn't necessarily have to be a contingent bet in the second half of the season. His profile is so good and so similar to someone like a Kyren Williams. Now, Williams is unusual, but one of the things that we do see is that if you don't have NFL size and speed, but on the field, you were the best guy, then there are at least some limited situations in which you can still translate that to the NFL. And once the Buccaneers have made that pick, then we want to be respectful of it and respectful of who Irving is and contrast it to White. I thought that White should have dropped more. He was one of those guys where I think that the draft, maybe in a sneaky way, maybe not, but hurt him specifically because, he's not Kyren Williams, right? So if you're not the star, you have a much better chance of losing volume to the understudy or losing the starting job there. I really like the way that looks for him and the way it allows you to fill out in this range.
For sure. Yeah. And I think Bucky strikes me as, because people weren't super excited about him as a prospect and they're going to see him as blocked more like a true handcuff. He, I think, is a guy who will probably chill out ADP wise, but if you start to get training camp buzz, he's playing well, he's going to force a committee here. Like we've seen it with Tank Bigsby, right? Last year where it's like, if there's a threat of a running back too, who's a rookie who can move up, like the market will happily push that guy up. So yeah, I agree with you there. We are on the clock. Javon Baker just slightly ahead of ADP. Not a ton of other rookie wide receiver options here. Some other running backs. What do you think? Tight end.
Where are we looking at tight end
at some point? Yeah.
Let's not address it this round.
Yeah. You like Javon Baker?
Yeah, let's go that
route. We can use this to talk about like the Drake Maye stuff too. Cause like my whole worry is like, if if the Patriots do what it sounds like they're going to do, Drake Maye isn't going to start till the end of the season. And you're then wondering, like, when are you going to start getting production from Drake Maye? And the question being, do we need to take on that ambiguity risk right now? Or can we wait until training camp, get confirmation he's the starter, and then also know people are still not going to be that excited about a New England Patriots quarterback and these weapons, and that his price is never going to get away from us in a way that forces us to take on that risk right now?
I guess that might be the case. I do think that in this range, including our quarterback, these quarterbacks who are going here are not interesting for fantasy at all. And even when you have them stacked up, lots of problems in terms of seeing them help you win tournaments. I mean, he has that mix of attributes where, I would expect, maybe not in the same way that it happened for Anthony Richardson, but I just think you get a huge jump.
Yep. Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I wish the Patriots weren't playing so coy with that. All right, we are back on the clock here. 2571, tight end, kind of lot of late options. I mean, the stack would be Conklin. I don't know if you have any interest in him in this context. Anything else you like here?
Well, like Shipley, where are we on with the running backs here?
We're at 5 running backs, probably one more on this build. Definitely one more tight end. Shipley?
Yeah.
All right, we add Shipley. We took him last week as well. Another guy who hasn't been a huge riser whatsoever. So we now have Gibbs, Walker, Chase Brown, then 3 rookies, Jaylen Wright, Bucky Irving, Will Shipley. At 7 wide receivers, Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, JSN, Jerry Jeudy, Javon Baker, just Brock Bowers at tight end, and pretty good at quarterback with Jaden Daniels and Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, we'll definitely want another tight end, and then we'll have to see what we do with that last pick.
So Pete, it does look like Sinnott went one pick ahead of us there at 14. That's where we should have. We should have both of these drafts. We made the mild mistake on Sinnott. He really dropped for us last week when we had Daniels, but in the sound and fury of the first draft there, we didn't pull him out. If we had taken him in the Rodgers pick and then Rodgers wrapping back around, that would have set us up very nicely. We'll have to be a little more cognizant of him in the future. Have you found yourself getting him a lot in early drafts?
I have. Yeah, I've been trying, although I would say of all these guys, like his ADP, it's really funny. It's like, he'll either go like right at or around ADP, or he'll just go like way higher, where it's like, if there's someone in a draft who's very excited about him, you will see, I just feel like the deviation on his ADP is like all over the place. But yeah, I've been trying to get a good amount of him. Yeah, we should have prioritized that. We did not. And then Luke McCaffrey, who Fantasy Football Garage thought we could stack as well, he went at 172. So I think McCaffrey could have certainly been on the menu at 178 if he was there to stack up.
So we do see Malik Washington go. He's an interesting one. I wasn't excited about the most recent signing for them. You get Beckham and Washington there together at the turn.
Yeah. And I think for you is Malik Washington, is he a guy where it's, the contingent upside, hey, Tyreek and I guess Waddle has never been able to stay healthy. He gets on the field in all those 2 wide receiver sets, or can some of that excitement stem from, hey, he is going to be the wide receiver 3 there. He could give us some immediate production even without an injury.
Yeah, I think you can get some immediate production because they so desperately needed a third player. I think they're going to stay concentrated, but that gives them an out. And one of the things we were talking with Danny about on OT is that, he had Washington and Corley basically flipped in terms of where they went in the draft and how good they actually are. That's what all of my research from Sports Info Solutions also suggests, that Washington is the guy. And, they do the thing late in the draft. We're like, yeah, we've wanted this guy for multiple rounds. Coach has been begging me to pick him. Whether or not that's actually the case or that means anything, I do think that he's someone who should have gone much earlier in the reality draft.
Yeah. All right. We are about to make our final 2 selections here. One of them will be a tight end here. We do have Tyler Conklin falling. This could be a 3 tight end team too, as well. Jatavian Sanders, our other Raiders tight end here as well. What do you think the play is for this tight end pick or another pick?
Yeah, I think we could go. I'm not in on Conklin at all, but I think it makes sense for this team. I also think Sanders is going to end up being a guy that everybody goes back to and says, why didn't we give his collegiate production and age-adjusted production? And you look at him compared to those Texas guys. I mean, from a per route basis, Jatavian Sanders was the guy who stood out at Texas last year, not necessarily Mitchell or Worthy. He has a horrible pro day, and it sucks all the air out of his sails, because we do know that we want the tight ends to be athletic, right? And yeah, when you're talking about a team that has plenty of questions in terms of how they're going to move the ball through the passing game, now they have a congested passing attack at this point, but no clear guy. If Sanders ended up not necessarily as the number one, because it's hard for obviously a tight end to do that, especially a rookie tight end, and yet I think there's a lot more opportunity there, and he's a much I don't understand how his production profile, again, as it relates to age and all those other things, can get him so out of fashion.
You guys are listening to the Best Ball Banana Stand. I'm Pete Overzet here with RotoViz's Shawn Siegele. We're going to be drafting Best Ball Mania 5 teams all summer long. They stream live on the Pete Overzet YouTube channel at 11 a.m. Eastern on Mondays, and then the audio will show up in a couple of spots. You can subscribe to the Best Ball Banana Stand podcast feed. I actually just got subscribed to that. And it will also be on the RotoViz feed, I believe, too. Shawn, after all that, I was hoping you didn't hype him up too much, but this seems like it could be a 3 tight end team with Jatavian Sanders, or would you want to take a guy like Jalin Hyatt as an 8th wide receiver?
I think I like the 3rd tight end here. I think that if you don't get the 2 stars, and one of the things that, the bully tight end does allow you to do is save a roster spot and address so many different things at the same time. Because, you're going to want that guy, if you take the 2 early ones, to hit in the flex, a decent amount of the time, right? He has to also be competitive for that spot. When you have that and you save the roster spot, then, in this case, we have an 18th round pick that we can use on somebody fun, like a Justin Fields, for example, throw in another little bit of a wild card there. But in this particular build, when you get the tight end with the QB, and that tight end has done some things in the past, and it sets up nicely for him to have the right types of spikes, and then you get someone like a Sanders. So you have sort of 2 bites at that rookie tight end apple. And again, I think we're about a year away from the rookie tight ends starting to become maybe not just as trendy, but trendy in a way that is more similar to what we see with the wide receivers.
Yeah. And we see those shifts, happen in the NFL all the time. People still toss out the weight stuff when talking about Xavier Worthy, even though we now see weight being less of a concern based on how the NFL is played. I think we see rookies getting off to faster starts than they ever had historically. Why wouldn't that trickle down to the tight end position, specifically for these guys like Bowers and Sanders, who are rocked up wide receivers, where normally it's like, the intricacies of the tight end system and all the blocking and all of this stuff. But if they are just getting on the field right away as weapons, I do think we'll see ADPs, catch up accordingly. This team in the books, before I recap this, just kind of dovetailing on the Jatavian Sanders stuff and kind of circling back to the late round quarterback. I know you had like a decent rank on Legette. Are you going to be in on, why am I blanking? Bryce Young as kind of a late option if you are ending up with some Legette, with some Jatavian Sanders?
I think only in situations where you get kind of blocked out of the people that you want, and maybe you end up with a 3 quarterback build late. My preference for the individual pieces in Carolina is probably going to be to have them as one-off pieces of teams where you're hoping that part of the thesis plays out, as opposed to thinking that the overall thesis could work. Now, I do think that obviously there are going to be some elements of having the overall situation in Carolina become more favorable that makes even the individual thesis more likely to play out. So those things are going to be connected, and yet I don't necessarily want to have a ton of that on the team. I think we have to be very skeptical of what Bryce Young can do now as sort of a ceiling play, even if we think he can bounce back to a more competent season after the struggles that he had as a rookie. And yet, certainly if you ended up with a team where you got a Jonathan Brooks, who is a very compelling play. Pat and I were able to grab him at the end of the first round of our RB Triflex rookie draft yesterday. That was a lot of fun. If you start to get a few of those guys through and you're betting heavily, then I wouldn't shy away from it. One of the things that hurts me a little bit every time I take Aaron Rodgers, even though I do think it makes sense, obviously, with Garrett Wilson, is just that I don't think that that is the play that is going to necessarily get you there. And then a very specific thing has to happen. But again, we're betting on that specific thing. And so, the team makes sense together.
Let's recap this team now that it's in the books here. A 2-6-7-3 build. Jaden Daniels and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. 6 running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown. 3 rookies, Jaylen Wright, Bucky Irving, and Will Shipley. 7 wide receivers, the first 5 there in those top rounds. Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Xavier Worthy, and JSN. We do tack on Jerry Jeudy as a bounce back guy and Javon Baker as a potential rookie breakout. And then our tight end room, we got the vet stacked up with Rodgers and Tyler Conklin. And then we have Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders for 2 bites at the rookie tight end apple. I would say overall similar to last week, like structurally, I really like how this comes out. We did, I think, definitely make a mistake on not grabbing Sinnott and then coming back and addressing quarterback, especially since we kind of ended up reaching for Bucky Irving with that subsequent pick anyways, knowing there might have been another late running back we liked similarly. So to me, that felt like the only misstep. Otherwise, I felt like we navigated it well.
Yeah, like last week, I do consider that to be my fault, because as I was preparing for this draft, I was thinking in terms of Jaden Daniels and then the tight end there. And then especially when you have the situation with, not getting the elite tight end, so the second, big time tight end, I think that, that would make it perfect. Having said that, I kind of like the way that the tight ends worked out. And so the Jets element to me works and makes this team very coherent, which is one of the things obviously we were looking for. And especially this early where we can't do some of the other stacking elements that we want to have to get that tight end off the Jets. It works better for this team than I think we're going to feel like for any other teams in the future. The other elements of this team I absolutely love. And to be able to get Gibbs and Walker so that we have that veteran presence and the explosiveness so that we can then take some risk on the rookie backs. I love that element of it. And we were able to do it without sacrificing at the wide receiver position where we're loaded up. And again, obviously last year, that was always a challenge in the Avalanche drafts. One of the reasons we're able to do it, obviously, is that we don't have the tight ends. But the other reason is that you're able to get good value at the quarterback position, not necessarily ADP value, right? But in terms of rankings value, how you're thinking about these guys. So anytime that you're able to come out of a draft with Jaden Daniels and then the QB who goes with your wide receiver 1, you've hit that element, I think, in a stronger fashion than if you use expensive early picks and you rob yourself of the ability to build out both running back and wide receiver simultaneously. That then just frees you up so much in the second half of the draft. And not just frees you up, but the first half of your draft is a smash hit.
Yeah, and I do think that last point, last year, the board really set up in a way where kind of zigzagging your way through the traditional running back dead zone rounds became very attractive because there were all these little spots along the way to grab these guys, your J.K. Dobbins, your Kenneth Walkers, your James Cooks, like all of these guys who had really exciting profiles at prices that were much different than they would have been in previous years. This year, it doesn't feel like the case so much, and you almost need to be at the exact right spot on the board to be able to pick off those values. But I would say Jahmyr Gibbs in the mid-second, Kenneth Walker in the early 6th, that is a spot where it kind of just perfectly lines up to get the profile and those backs in ranges that could otherwise be a little dicey.
And it does set you up to get Travis Etienne if you want to go that direction. So I like that play in some drafts. In the rooms that I do with you, I always just want to make sure that we don't get too many running backs because I think there are such sharp and important tiers at wide receiver that you have to stay ahead of. But I think that you're exactly right in that if you do get this kind of 10-11 type of draft slot, and there are some things you lose in terms of not having those top 5 wide receivers, one of the things that you get back is the ability to play with some explosive running backs that otherwise maybe you're not going to get the right prices on. And when you look at our running back roster here, one of the things that I love about it is that with the exception of Bucky Irving, who is a very specific different thesis and maybe one that complements the rest of these guys nicely, I mean, we're talking about the most explosive running backs in the NFL. And again, I think in 2024, one of the things that you want to make sure that you have is the ability for a guy to win on a single play, because you don't know how much volume you're necessarily going to get. If you get that explosiveness and you get the volume, which certainly we're hoping for with guys like Gibbs and Walker, then you end up getting both things. But as you discussed it with the Bengals situation, as you discussed it with the Dolphins situation, I mean, one of the things that's so crazy about the Dolphins situation, it's basically impossible to fathom, is that when you look at it from an expected points and a fantasy points over expected situation, then, I mean, both of the Dolphins backs added almost a touchdown per game purely through efficiency. Right. And one of the things you think is, well, I want to be a little bit aware of that so I don't assume that these Dolphins backs are going to be able to do it again, because it's just so extreme. At the other side of that, I mean, Blair Andrews always has these great articles about how you actually need to chase efficiency. And if you don't, your team will not be talented enough. And even if you lose some of that efficiency, I mean, the Dolphins are the team that's going to create for you again. I think that the Bengals are a team that could create it for you. And obviously the Detroit Lions, a team, you know, with a Gibbs who can create it for you. You can win in a variety of ways if your back is that explosive. If you're drafting the guys based on workload and trying to, you know, grab a little bit of ADP value with them as you go through the drafts, I'm not saying that that can't work. It's going to be savvy in some situations, but I mean, you need all of that work. And you're, you know, talk about the anti-fragile element of it, however you kind of want to apply that term, but it's very unlikely that that type of team can get better through the course of the season because you needed everything that was built in to start.
Yeah, that's very well said. And another thing I thought of in dovetails with a video I'm going to be posting on the Deposit Kingdom channel, hopefully tomorrow, but I did a draft, a Best Ball Mania draft on Friday. I recorded it, but before I drafted the team, I reverse engineered the draft, which is something I've learned from you over the years and how valuable it can be to know which pieces and which targets you have late to inform your structures and your selections early, which is normally not how people think about things. There's lots of good drafters who draft 5 or 6 rounds, see how it happens, and then kind of adjust accordingly. But it is really interesting to build back to front. And I think specifically right now where there are still mispriced guys and knowing like, hey, I really like 3 to 4 of these late round running backs. Maybe that pushes me more to an anchor RB or a 0 RB build, knowing, hey, I really like Jaylen Daniels, Ben Sinnott, and Luke McCaffrey's price right now. Okay, that frees up an entire quarterback selection for me because I know I'm doing that. And so I drafted a team where I outlined all of my early targets. And then, of course, like any draft, you have some surprises, some things that fall in your lap that you didn't expect, but it still provides you with these guardrails of kind of staying on track. And I will give a slight spoiler. I was able to land the Jaylen Daniels double stack with Ben Sinnott and Luke McCaffrey, but also accomplish and react to some surprises in the draft room. But it would be an exercise I would recommend to a lot of people right now, specifically with these values. Like go through the 18th, the 17th, the 16th round. What are the picks you like there? And then, oh, they're all running backs. Well, then how does that impact whether you take or maybe not take that position earlier?
It's really a fantastic way to play it. And I encourage everybody to go through that experiment for yourself, especially if you're going to allow yourself to be a little bit more concentrated on your exposures. You need to make sure that you've built it out from that direction as well, so you understand what all the consequences are going to be.
Yeah. And it, you know, I had normally, you know, it's fun to do too, because like one of the things I've been talking about in my Best Ball Mania strategy video, which is also up on the Deposit Kingdom, is like the edges we're going to have at specific points of the season are going to change, you know, and one of the benefits of drafting now is we still do have some of these running backs who are cheap. Like if Tyrone Tracy starts to get buzz at training camp, he is no longer going to be available where he is now. So having those targets penciled in now, it kind of keeps you on track, because this was a really good example, Shawn, of like Jaylen Daniels, Ben Sinnott should have been a screaming target for both of us. And we both got lost in the sauce. while talking about other things. Had we done the exercise for this team where we said, hey, Jane Daniels is a priority target, Ben Sinnott, it would have been front and center on our mind. And when I did that exercise on Friday, I literally had my sheet up as I did the draft, knowing these are the road marks along the way that I'm trying to hit. So I do think it really can keep you on track and not allow you to get distracted by all the shiny objects that pop up in a typical draft.
Yeah, and like I said, I had him as a target. I've got him ranked about 1 round ahead of ADP, which, isn't a massive amount at that range of the draft. But yeah, agree completely. And as they change, we'll be ready for him there. But no, I wanted to say the thing that popped into my head was when I came on and you were talking about Tyron Tracy, I was like, man, that probably means Pete's not going to want to draft him with me here. So
no, I'm on board because, again, I think compared to you, I'm a little bit more risk averse, or want to be more risk averse in May, specifically of not taking on zeros on these guys who just might not be where we want them to be on the depth chart. I feel like Tyron Tracy, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, in that because the depth chart is so thin, similar with Kamani Vidal as well, that it seems really unlikely that they're not at least going to get a crack early. They might not be good, but that's the case for any rookie. But the main thing is like, are they just going to be buried on the bench the entire season and we're never going to know? But with Tyron Tracy and Vidal, I feel like they're going to have early opportunities, which then gets really exciting because if they seize those opportunities, they are going to absolutely smash their ADP.
And, one of the things here too, we do want to differentiate a little bit between the guys who were like weird draft picks and the guys who were very savvy draft picks. I love both of those players, their actual profiles. And so from that perspective, when you consider who they are and now the shots that they've got, I think you've got to be really excited. It doesn't mean that it'll work because you can get excited for a handful of these guys every year. And obviously they don't all pan out, but those two names, those players are better than people realize.
Yep, for sure. Well, Shawn, appreciate you hopping on as always. Last week, we essentially snuck in an extra show because we were vamping for about 45 minutes while Best Ball Mania launched on delay. Today, we were able to get right down to business. And like I said, this is going to be the formula for the Best Ball Banana Stand going forward, 11 a.m. Eastern, stream drafts, audio posting later on the Best Ball Banana Stand podcast feed. Shawn, anything else going on at RotoViz? I know I spent part of the weekend digesting your top 50 Dynasty ranks. I found that to be a very helpful tool as I navigated some of my Dynasty drafts this weekend. Anything else that people should look out for?
Yeah, that one was a labor of love putting together. Hopefully it does help. Pete, I just spent like the last 48 hours on the clock or making trades just constantly throughout this was RB Triflex weekend at the FFPC, rookie drafts going there. I'll have lots of content with that. Michael Dubner is going to have some best ball content. I think Jake Bose is going to have some best ball content. People want to look out for that. Ben and I are going to start one of our listener favorite series, kind of looking at the teams division by division, over Stealing Bananas, either this week or next week. The format we've kind of moved to with that has been a lot of fun. So encourage people to check us out over there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Shawn. I will see you a week from today at 11 a.m. Eastern for the Best Ball Banana Stand. We'll see you guys next week. All right. And of course, coming in for our triple header, we got the solo draft. We got this draft with Shawn. And now, of course, we got the BBM3 champ himself, Pat Kerrane, fresh off of an article on Legendary Upside that I'm excited to read. How are you doing, Pat?
Doing good, yeah. Just got an article out this morning that's it's about a tree that they found in the South American or Central American rainforest in 1965. So it's very it's obviously a topic I had to write about for Best Ball.
And is this article free for everyone, or is some
it
of this
is
behind the paywall?
No, I made it completely free. Yeah, you can't do a metaphor this extended and have it behind a paywall. That's my philosophy on writing.
There you go. I did just drop it in the link. I noticed it right as I was about to go live, so haven't had a chance to read, but we'll be checking that out later today. But Pat, how is your first week of BBM5 drafting going? How many teams have you gotten under your belt?
I've only done 6. I kind of wanted to wait until the schedule came out after the initial rookie. I wanted to get in there and draft Xavier Worthy in the 70s, which I was able to do a few times, and get some of those really, really nice values. But my feeling now is that maybe the values aren't going to be that different than they will post schedule release. I might do like one or two more, but I basically force myself to slow down and save some of my bullets. I did that by max entering the mini schnauzer slow.
Oh no,
So
you did.
I have 20
had
slows
growth.
going.
I said to myself, I'm not, and I'm such an all or nothing guy. Like the normal thing would have been is like I do, 2 to 3, just hop into a couple 3. But I was like, I'm literally all or nothing, and I decided
we can't do 2 to 3 mini schnauzers.
No, I said I'm not ready to enter slow draft hell, because this is the other thing for me is like, even if I just did 2 to 3, I'm literally setting up the calendar reminders. I don't have Underdog push notifications going. I don't have like any notifications on my phone. So I'm like, I'm going to have to set up calendar reminders for all of these picks. I'm like, I'm just not quite there yet right now. I'm just not quite there.
Yeah, I tend to do it a little bit more haphazardly, where I just kind of jump in and make some picks. I'm on my phone too much, so it doesn't tend to be a big problem. The thing that I didn't do is I didn't star everyone. And I'm like, I need to at some point sit down and star the correlations that I have for these teams. Because even
Star
with
method's
that,
legit, dude.
it is legit. Davis is right about that.
No, it is legit for slow draft. I am pro star method slow draft, anti star method fast draft.
You literally can't remember what you were doing. Like, it's like one of the only ways I know of to keep track. So yeah, I need to go through and basically remind myself what I was trying to do with my earlier picks.
Yes. Well, we are off to the races in our Best Ball Mania 5 draft. We got the 1-6 here with Pat. I did tip you guys off in the Best Ball Breakfast channel within the Deposit Kingdom Discord. If you guys are YouTube members for the Best Ball Value Hounds tier, you can unlock that, and I will do my best to tip you off. There were 9 spots when I entered, tipped it off, and snap filled. So lots of people, friends and family trying to get in these drafts. The 1-6 Pat looks like, you know what I need to do? I want to get the leg up rankings in here. I'll do that in 1 second. Looks like we're at a Bijan, Amon-Ra, Breece Hall decision.
I'm good with all 3 of those guys. Probably Bijan or Amon-Ra, because you can get Breece later these days.
Did we do Bijan last week?
We probably did. Let's do Amon-Ra.
Yeah, let's do Amon-Ra just to mix it up. Both their ADPs very similar. I am just real quick on the screen share. I'm going to go and load in the ranks. I had Shawn's RotoViz ranks loaded in for that draft. And then for this one, I am going to go ahead and get the leg up ranks. I love drafting off the leg up ranks. You guys are like, I consider you the centrist between like ETR and Shawn with RotoViz, where you got like ETR, which is like, the more conservative projectable volume. And I'm not shorting any of these. These are my 3 favorite ranking sets. And then Shawn's are like the radical, I do not care about ADP. Here's mine. And then you guys meet in the middle where you're like, yes, we like these players, but we're also going to bake in ADP when we factor in these decisions. So that's my selling point for the leg up ranks.
I did not expect to be the centrist in this. I generally think I'm, I think of myself as like more in the Shawn spectrum, but I guess no one's as Shawn as Shawn. That's if you're using Shawn, I will be the centrist.
Well, he doesn't bake in ADP. He has Xavier Worthy ranked at pick 41, and so he has Chase Brown ranked at 71, and you just let it fucking rip.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep. All right. So yeah, I'm trying to see here. We do. Pat, I would say, I don't know if you probably missed it, but my solo draft this morning was my first wide receiver avalanche room. Like it was a legit old school avalanche. So I am cautiously anticipating that a bit right now.
Well, we have an RB start already, so that's good.
And when Barkley is sliding 5 picks past ADP, it has avalanche vibes. So by ADP, Barkley, Adams, Kyren, Achane. By your ranks, Achane, Debo, Diggs. Which direction you want to go?
I take a ton of Achane. He is do you think he'd come back or not?
I don't think he'll come back, but he is falling, and we have cover with Barkley, Kyren.
We could take Debo or Diggs.
Yeah, let's do Debo. See if the room wants to give us a running back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I'm confused because I thought we took Achane last week too. Did we start Bijan Achane?
I don't remember what we started with. I know we took Achane. I know for a fact we took Achane.
We took Achane. Okay, we didn't. It must have been. Was it the ship chasing stream? Now I'm confused.
Who do we start with? Who was our first pick?
It was Achane. We didn't take Bijan. We both in our head thought we took.
It was Chase. It was Chase.
It was Chase. Okay. All right. Well, regardless, we are on a different path than we went last week. Have you had any other big thoughts or ADP things? Obviously, you guys are going to break it down on ADP chasing today at 3:30 p.m. Eastern with Sam and Davis, these updated market movements, but anything else kind of sticking out to you in this first week?
Well, I would encourage people to read the article I posted today, because it's about how I want to take stands this year as opposed to last year. Well, not as opposed, but just kind of dialing in what I want to do a little bit more in terms of how I'm taking stands, building around the article that Sacrilegious had up on the site, which is also free on Jaxon Similarity. The idea that you want to build a diversified portfolio of teams so that each of your teams is kind of has a different path to victory. You're not like scooping your own EV. But I did that through the lens of like, all right, what if I have a Breece Hall or, a Jaylen Warren, the type of guy I want to take a massive stand on, and thinking through how I can build a better portfolio, even when I think there's a guy like that.
For sure. All right. So Waddle is the rank and ADP value. Laporta would be if you wanted to set up like a Goff double. What do you want to do?
I like Waddle a lot.
Me too. Waddle, just a slight ADP value here, but very fun start. Amon-Ra, Debo, Jaylen Waddle. So and again, I haven't had a chance to read the article yet.
See, Alex said ETR bakes in the AARP.
I missed that. Oh my goodness.
That's a good joke. All right.
By the way, I talked with Leone on Best Ball After Dark on Saturday. Another thing you guys as YouTube members can get access to. Had a fun conversation with him and drafted a very ETR-ish team, loading in those ETR ranks. And like this, it kind of dovetails with the Jaxon similarities and the diversification stuff. Like I love, doing a draft. I did a draft with Leone's ETR ranks, then just did one with Shawn's ADP. Then I do it with his ranks. Now doing one with you. Sometimes I'll hop in and just do it off of ADP. And it does lead you to very diversified builds just by using different ranking sets.
You make an appearance in the article, Pete. I discuss your Jaxon similarity, which is quite different than mine, much more diversified. You had a better advance rate as well. So this is not, it's pretty sharp. It's a pretty sharp way to go. But I know that, like, I kind of talk about, I tend to think I have a couple big stands, or big edges that in a given year. Let's say last year there were two guys I went over 30% on. I really felt strongly that was Breece Hall and Jaylen Warren, that those were big edges. But like, in best ball, you don't have to like force that. Like if you feel like you don't have that guy, maybe you had a guy last year and you don't feel that way this year, your edge can be like navigating draft rooms and roster construction and understanding like team building principles. Like that can be your big edge. And if you just like force player stands or don't force diversification to some extent, then you're actually undermining that edge.
Yes, for sure. And I think, what was I going to say? I had a point and now I just lost it. Let's see real quick. This is Pat, do you have any info available anywhere about your ranking process? You guys talk through individual decision points all the time on the Leg Up feed, but do you have any macro stuff where you can point people in that direction?
I mean, we do podcasts pretty regularly on the rankings. They're not projection-driven rankings, which I think is, at this point, given kind of the environment, one of the edges that we have, given the way these tournaments play out, and prioritizing archetypes that we think are going to be better late in the season.
All right, Pat, we're on the clock at 4-7 ADP values on both Jalen Hurts and Derrick Henry. Hurts the rank value, Henry the ADP value. What do you think?
I mean, I don't have any Henry. I would take Henry if you want. I'd also take Hurts.
I'm fine with Henry here.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, almost a full round past ADP at 4-7. I have a hard time envisioning much cheaper Henry outside of Avalanche draft rooms.
Yeah. So just to expand a little bit on the rankings, I mean, generally I have some stuff that I use to kind of dial in sort of like player talent level, efficiency, that type of stuff. and then we are ranking the players in kind of a pure rank, like how we think we would draft against ourselves, basically. But then we have that cut with the ADP. And the pure rank, I've had people like, oh, are you going to release the pure ranks? The pure rank is like an input. It is not, I don't think they're helpful once you get to an actual draft, because we're not drafting against 12 other me's or whatever, or 11 other me's. We're drafting against other people. And so, like, you know, guys are much higher in the pure ranks or much lower than I think is even necessarily helpful for people to see. Because it's more about, like, we're setting ourselves up. Like, we think this guy's going to rise, and as he rises, he'll just incrementally move up the rankings without additional work from us.
Yes. All right, we're about to pick at 5-6. I remember the other thing I was going to mention about some of that diversification stuff here, but looking at the board, we do have some quarterbacks falling. Mahomes is still on the board. We'll see what these next two drafters do. CJ Stroud on the board. Also have, of course, the biggest riser in all of drafts in Xavier Worthy. If we want the Dalton Kincaid tight end click, the elite tight ends are flying off the board as Pitts. Wow, Pat. Generally don't see Pitts go at 5-3. Let's see what user the man does here before us, but do you have any leans at this spot? He takes Mixon.
I mean, we can stack Mahomes, right? We can get that done still.
Theoretically. Davis got sniped on this exact same setup in draft 1, taking Mahomes here and then missing out on all 3. But I would be Kincaid or Mahomes.
I think I'm Mahomes.
All right, let's attempt it. We will give it a shot. Mahomes here is also 10 picks past ADP. So we get Henry, value hound, Patrick Mahomes, value hound. They pair up with Amon-Ra, Debo, and Jalen Waddle here. You'll want to cry. The thing I was going to say about some of this diversification stuff and what's also nice when you guys are baking in ADP and the risers and stuff is, like, you are getting some kind of natural shuffling to the ranks. And one thing, a lot of the guys who do high volume underdog NBA drafts, because that's such a projection based sport, and just because one guy projects like 0.2 points better than the other, doesn't mean you want like 100% of that one guy. And so what they do is they literally run randomness through their ranks and re-upload. A lot of those guys are just autoing those too, because you don't have to worry about the correlations. And so they'll do a set of 20, randomize, re-upload, run another set. So they're getting natural diversification through randomness. And even Leone was like, that wouldn't be a bad thing to do with like a set of rankings that you're continually drafting off of. Just add in some randomness, re-upload. You're not making any huge tier-based mistakes, most likely, assuming you have your randomness dialed in, but then you start to get different textures.
We're thinking about stuff like that. Yeah. I think that's sort of where things are heading.
Yeah. Look at that. I love how you were almost so coy with your response to that. Like, I'm already well ahead of you, Peter. Let's answer this question here for Brian. So can someone explain the avalanche? This is a term that definitely started on ship chasing streams, the show Pat, Ben Gretch, and I do weekly on Thursdays. By the way, ship chasing is now going to be on Thursday afternoons, 3 p.m. Eastern this week and going forward. But it's when a bunch of people who love wide receivers all hop in the same draft room, and wide receivers go well ahead of their ADP for essentially like the first 10 rounds until everyone finally says, all right, we'll start drafting other positions. Do you have, is there a better definition of that, Pat, for a wide receiver?
That's right. Avalanche? That's right. And the reason we call it an avalanche is that you can get buried in the avalanche. Like, essentially, when the avalanche is coming down, much like you got to get down the mountain. And getting down the mountain means drafting wide receivers because, oh my God, we got sniped on Rice. God damn it.
I told you. I told you. Davis told us. I knew it was happening. I mean, do you know what Davis did? He grabbed Vlad Makaki after getting sniped. But I'm happy to do Brian Thomas or...
Let's grab Vlad and hope they play the Chargers week 17.
I love that we're already there with the justification for the lad pick. Let's hope he plays our quarterback in week 6.
We got the bring back, Davis. What do you think about that? Oh, I guess you did the same thing, so you like it.
See, Pat saw the future in me talking about randomness with diversification. I saw the future was what was going to happen with that Mahomes pick, and I still allowed it to happen.
God, that was brutal. One pick before to the CJ Stroud guy. What are you doing? What's the point of that? God damn it.
I don't know. D. Owens, Pete, and Pat. I have 71% Devontae Walker. Thoughts? I like Devontae Walker as a late pick with Lamar. That seems fairly aggressive, but it's like, is that 3 drafts in, or what would the percentages be? Like, it's May. Who cares?
One thing I would say is, like, this is a kind of trick that I've employed the last couple years to kind of help myself diversify my late round picks. Is you're in love with Tez Walker, okay? Clearly, you've drafted 71%. You're in love, right? You can't tell yourself not to be in love anymore. That doesn't work. The only way to stop drafting Tez Walker is to find new love. You got to find someone else that you can fall in love with in the late rounds, and then draft them too much. As long as you're then willing to move off of that player and fall in love with someone else eventually, it'll kind of work itself out. It's probably not the most efficient way to do it, but we are humans. You know, we gotta trick ourselves into doing smart stuff sometimes. So I would just look around, be open to new people in the late rounds.
Well, it's kind of similar. I think it was a couple years ago. I think you and Davis first talked about it when you were doing a pod, and you kind of stumbled upon the thing. It was like basically speed dating the late round picks. Like, you have your flavor of the week where it's like, this week I'm taking this random running back flyer. Oh, and now the next week there's this rookie wide receiver I'm going to start taking with every 18th round. And you just move on, right? Because it's like the hot thing, or you think it's a value or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, you got to.
And look, you're allowed to come back. Like, you know, I think that's one way to test. Is Marcus Brown gone? He's probably long gone.
Oh, Pat, he was gone before that last pick.
God damn it. All right.
Do you want Keon Coleman? Or are we just gonna do both the steamers here?
Yeah, let's grab the steam.
Here, look, Pat. This is what happened. We took Patrick Mahomes at pick 54. Xavier Worthy made it to pick 59. Marquise Brown went at 61 to Casey, and then Rashee Rice went at pick 66.
So brutal. We said unstacked Mahomes.
I should have pushed back more on that. I knew that was going to happen.
Guys,
I knew it was going to happen. You're like, we'll be able to get him, and I'm like, I literally just watched Davis do this, and you're not going to get him.
In my defense, Brown should still be here now. Like, we should have passed on him and tried to get him in the 8th, but he was not coming.
Yeah. What were we talking about? Yeah. So the thing, yeah, it is so early. I mean, my only thing about that would be, I think it's completely normal if you have just like some crazy bags on guys, but I would want them to be guys I predict will rise, right? Like, that's the reason I'm hammering them there. Like, my inclination, maybe I'm wrong, is that Devontae Walker will hang out in the 17th and 18th round all summer, in which case I'm like, there are guys who are going in that range who won't be there. Like a guy like Tyrone Tracy, who we've been talking about today. Like, I don't think he's going to be there for much longer. Like, I'd rather get those guys who will no longer be there, just knowing my Walker bags, I'm going to be able to pack those whenever I want.
I think it's a great point. And also, it's like, you should have in the back of your mind, like, how am I going to stop taking this guy? What is going to be that, the path to me finding someone else that I'm taking a ton of? One of the easiest paths is that he moves up in ADP, and then you're actually like happy. You're happy to not be taking that guy every time in the 18th round, because you have a big bag that no one else has access to. So it becomes a win, and it becomes a natural point for you to start diversifying that pick. So yeah, I think that's a really sharp way to think about it.
But then on the flip side, I'll draft with Shawn, and Shawn does not care about those things. He does not care about dead roster spot risk. Like, we've drafted Will Shipley on both of our teams well ahead of ADP. So it like so many things in best ball, it comes down to your appetite for risk tolerance, and how you're wanting to play it. I like, if we're drafting all summer long, playing it like a market-based game, thinking about those movers, knowing where to push which edges at which specific times. That's it. That's what's fun for me.
I like that part of it too. Yeah. And like, I want to take big stands on players, but I want to be still thinking through those parts of the game too, because you're trying to build a portfolio of teams around that edge. And then the other thing is, like, you have to, there are some players where you're going to be like, I'm okay taking this player even if they fall.
we're on the clock. We got the Pittsburgh backs and Njoku if we want to go tight end. I don't think anything. We don't have to take Brock here. You push him. What do you think?
I love Warren.
I love it. You said that like Brick Tamlin and
I know.
I love Warren.
Warren. So there are certain guys that I'm like, I'm gonna take a stand on this dude. I think he's a big edge, and it's not really about the price. Warren would be one of those guys for me. Maybe the guy this year.
So I know you like Warren. Anyone who drafts off the leg up ranks, I think lots of people generally like Warren. I guess the question I have for you is how much is he separating within this ADP tier for you? Because we do have lots of guys, the Bensons, the Jonathan Brooks, the Jonte Williams, the DeAndre Swift. He is fully separating from those guys for you, like in a different tier.
Yeah. I mean, he was really good last year. He's been a really good receiver for 2 years. He's got sufficient size. He's short, but he's got sufficient size to be like a true lead back. He's pretty clearly the best back in his backfield. I think even the Steelers are starting to realize that. They don't pick up the fifth-year option on Najee. And he's got an offense that's going to run the hell out of the ball. I also think that Justin Fields, should bring some more efficiency to that offense. Even Russell Wilson might be better than Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. So as much as we don't love the way Arthur Smith's going to design the offense overall, it should bring plenty of volume for the backfield. I think you're getting a young back, versatile back, clearly the most talented guy in his backfield. I think clearly more talented at this point than a lot of these backs in this area. I mean, Tony Pollard's coming off like an extremely concerning, inefficient season. DeAndre Swift hasn't been that explosive for a couple seasons. Like this is kind of a back on the rise. And I think he's kind of like, he's getting slept on because he's like in a split backfield and, is a backup in some people's minds. But I think this is like one of the best bet on talent plays available in this range by far.
Love it. So we are on the clock. We could stack up Debo with Brock. He's right here around ADP. Also some other running back options. Connor, Mostert, Javonte. What do you think?
I mean, a little correlation would be nice.
Yeah, I guess then the question is, can we afford the QB2 in this range? Should we try to push it knowing we have like Herbert, Tua?
Yeah. What do you think?
Do
you just get Goddard? Do you want to get a tight end? That's probably smart.
That's what I just did at the last second.
Yeah, I like it.
Goddard's an interesting one. Why do you think because he in a previous year would have been going, I would say like right after Kittle, like right by Ingram, like this would have been the spot. Like I honestly think if I would have had to have guessed where was Goddard's ADP, and yet for some reason when you do click him, it doesn't even feel like a value in the triple digits. Like what's going on with Goddard?
I don't know. I mean, I think the Eagles left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. So that's part of it. You also have, I think, it is just true that he's the number 3 option in the passing game. Like he's not passing Devontae Smith, obviously not passing AJ Brown. And so it's like harder to dream on a little bit, or even like compared to Jake Ferguson, you're like, is he like the number 2 behind Lamb? David Njoku. I mean, he got peppered with targets in the last season. I think Njoku and Goddard should be closer, but I think that's probably part of it. Is that you're like, it's Jalen Hurts' number 3 target, but it's a very concentrated offense. He's good, and I think he's a pretty big value. After him, I see a pretty big tier break. I also think at this point he should be going ahead of Bowers, and I like Bowers a lot, but like, it's Gardner Minshew's. He could be like Gardner Minshew's number 3. Wouldn't you rather have Jalen Hurts number 3?
Right. And that's why I am just thinking about him even juxtaposed with Ingram, because you were kind of doing, just like the high level, like where is he on the target pecking order? I mean, if Brian Thomas is as good as the Jags think he is, like Evan Ingram's going to be the 3rd target there, in the same way Goddard is going to be the 3rd target on the Eagles. Like, yeah, it is interesting that he's kind of become the less shiny object. I have lots of issues with Njoku too. I mean, I feel like he's being priced a little bit more toward because of his production with Joe Flacco last year. And the splits without Joe Flacco have not been good. His splits with Watson have been nowhere close to as good. So I think you could start to pull holes in a lot of these guys. And
they traded for Judy. Judy's there.
Judy, exactly.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's more target competition. You have the quarterback issues. But I think because Ingram and Njoku have delivered playoff spike weeks for drafters over the past couple of years, everyone just has very the thesis has played out for those clicks. And it's not hard to see Njoku can drop 25 in week 17, and that would be really nice again.
Yeah.
I like that we pushed quarterback here because now we have lots of options with basically any of our stacks that we want to do. Even Jared Goff is still chilling here. So we can kind of play this however we want. We could even continue to push quarterback, just knowing we have literally 4 guys here. Yeah, we might want to
continue to push it.
Yeah. Running back, I don't think we need to do anything with running back here. I think this is wide receiver if we want to push QB.
I agree.
Do you want to do Palmer and maybe try to set up the double with Herbert?
We could do that. We could also grab Pearsall.
Yeah, I just play the ADP game a little bit. Pearsall's 30 picks later.
I was just thinking we probably, because that's 6 wide receivers, so we probably are chilling a wide receiver for a while.
Yeah, I guess if Brock does fall to us here at 126, we take Brock and then see if the room gives us Pearsall at ADP.
Yep.
And even then, I have no problem having
double's
Palmer.
Fun.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I got Palmer. It was one of those weird dynamics that happened with the wide receiver avalanche. My first draft, total avalanche. But then, eventually, all the guys who went 5 wide receivers through 6 or 7 rounds, they circle back, start drafting other positions, and then you can actually get deals on the triple-digit wide receiver. So I got Josh Palmer past ADP in the wide receiver avalanche draft because it was my turn to start selecting wide receivers after everyone else stopped.
Yeah, it is tough when you're picking yourself up and grabbing Josh Palmer and Jameson Williams. I think this is who I'm going to war with.
Exactly. Ostermang says Dallas Goedert falls, not the kind of guy you reach on. I mean, we reached because of structural concerns, and we're both putting him in that tier of those other tight ends that we talked about. And if you miss out on Goddard and then you fall down to the Dalton Schultz and Cole Kmet tier, now you're getting a different caliber player and potentially having to reach again later for a tight end. So that's just a way to kind of offset that dynamic.
Yeah, I'd also say that, if you're reaching in round 9 and you're like, he really ought to go in round 10. I mean, we're probably if this was an auction, you're talking about probably $2 of you spent.
Right.
You overspent on a guy probably $2 worth out of a $200 budget. It's not a big deal. If it's going to keep your structure intact, I really don't think you need to worry about it too much.
Herbert, right?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Yeah, this, we get Herbert a little bit past ADP.
That's smart, Pete. I like this. I like this a lot better than if we grab Purdy.
Yeah, it's odd. I almost was ready to go click Purdy right there. That I was like, we took Patrick Mahomes in the 5th.
Yes.
And let's chill. Yeah, what else was I going to say here? Here's the team through 11 rounds. We're done at quarterback, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. We got our 2 running backs, Derrick Henry and Jaylen Warren, big dog and little dog. We got, speaking of which, right on cue, wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, Keon Coleman, and a pair of Chargers, Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer, and then Dallas Goedert at tight ends. So in decent shape positionally here.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to need to draft Justin Ross or something, but
Do you know when I mentioned how I wrote about the ship chasing clip curse? And I was going through our ship chasing StreamYard hopper where I have the clips loaded, and I forgot, I don't even know who made it, but there's a Justin Ross clip in there. I'm like, even the dustiest of random players just spectacularly fail or turn out to be awful humans. So there's that too.
Yeah, we really have a great track record.
This is the year. we turn it around, or we find a player that we don't like and we do kind of a covert operation. Although that would just result in a reverse mush, I feel.
I think it would be a reverse mush, and then he would win like Walter Payton Man of the Year. We'd be completely wrong about his character.
Yeah. I will say, Murphy timed that bark just perfectly after my big dog, little dog comment. Murphy literally started barking right after that.
He understands. He understands the business that I'm in, you know?
I kind of like how this board has broke for us. I really love Charbonnet here at pick 139. What do you think?
I like it. Yeah. So it's kind of what we need.
Yeah. Gets our third running back here. Shawn and I selected Kenneth Walker in the early 6th in the previous draft. This is definitely one of those backfields where I want both. Like, I'm not picking sides here. I will take Kenneth Walker when he's a value. And I think Zach Charbonnet, honestly, is probably like a round or so underpriced just in general where he's going.
Yeah, I haven't taken a ton of Charbonnet, but I agree he's a target. I mean, we were taking this guy kind of in the 9th last year.
Yeah.
With like probably a little bit more optimism about his talent level. I don't think he's like super talented. And with rookies, you always have that like, what if he's awesome? I don't think he's like awesome, but he's good. And Walker has some limitations, and I think pretty clearly Charbonnet has a lot of contingent value. So I think he's a strong pick in the 12th round.
It's one of the cleaner spots for contingent value that you'll get. Where we just know exactly what we're getting when Kenneth Walker goes down. I guess maybe there's a slight new variable in that it's a new coaching staff, but there's no talent on the depth chart that I think can even really force a committee with Charbonnet. And he's one of those contingent backs who like benefit even more than the starter because he gets what the starter had plus what he already had.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many like guys who are the bigger of the two backs. What do we want to? Yeah, I was thinking we might want to go Wright or Lloyd here and get another running back.
Yeah, I'm on board with either of that. We can probably sit Legette's the faller here. You want Marshawn Lloyd or Legette?
How much of a fall are we talking? I mean, we don't need the wide receiver really. We need the running back.
I would say wide receiver definitely gets thinner, but there's still some spots we can pick our spots. I'm fine with Lloyd. I like Lloyd a lot.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say on Charbonnet, like, there's not too many backs who's like the bigger of the two backs in the backfield and is kind of more of the passing down guy. Like, he profiles as kind of an early down banger, but because Walker is more limited, he was able to get on the field in some third down capacity. So, yeah, Charbonnet, I think the contingent value story is really, really appealing because it's potentially he comes in and he's a 3-down guy.
And it's funny because I've been using, we go back to back Zach Charbonnet, Marshawn Lloyd. I've, floated kind of Marshawn Lloyd could be closer to Zach Charbonnet than he is to Tyler Algier as a true handcuff. In my recent Fallers video, which is on the Deposit Kingdom channel, I think I have it pinned in the chat right now. I included some clips from Matt LaFleur, both talking about Marshawn Lloyd, how he's excited about him as a weapon out of the backfield. Specifically, he talked about him as a pass catcher. There's also a comment from him at the owners' meetings that the Coach Speak Index flagged for me, where he's talking about wanting a committee backfield. And that's how they've always operated, even with, Aaron Jones. I guess at times we saw him take over for stretches. But my thought is Marshawn Lloyd could be closer to Zach Charbonnet as contingent back plus, who's getting on the field right away. And that at pick 150 just feels like a total smash to me, behind a back who has been very inefficient these past couple of years.
Yeah, well, he was very efficient 2 years ago, and then
last year. Yeah,
last year is really inefficient. Yeah, I don't know. The whole Josh Jacobs thing is kind of weird because it seems like LaFleur was sort of like, yeah, pretty weird move by our general manager, but I guess I'll roll with it. And then, he's talking about like how basically he feels strongly that they should use guys like they've been using guys, which is not in an every down workhorse capacity, which is kind of what makes Josh Jacobs good for fantasy. Because he never, even when he was efficient 2 years ago, like he's never been Aaron Jones level efficient. So if he's in kind of an Aaron Jones role and then there's additional work available, that makes Marshawn Lloyd pretty interesting, which is not my initial read of things, because it's like, why would you sign Josh Jacobs and then not use him like Josh Jacobs? But that kind of seems like where we're headed.
Yeah. Speaking of rookie running backs, I also love Bucky in this range. Drafted him with Shawn, been drafting him a ton. We could do another wide receiver if we want some like rookie. We could get Malachi or Luke McCaffrey. What do you think?
I would also throw in Juwan Johnson, where tight end's starting to dry up. But yeah, I think Bucky, Gibson, or Juwan Johnson.
Let's do Bucky. He's again another guy I expect to rise there. I like Juwan. I've been getting him a little later than this, so we could maybe sit on that. I wanted to post, because Coach Speak Index actually just posted a Bucky Irving coach clip earlier today. That was, I only got to glance at it. I'll read it here. The OC, which this is a unique variable too about the Bucs, right? We have a new offensive coordinator here. Like, people were part of like the Rachaad White stuff might have been driven by how Dave Canales likes to deploy backfields. Like, this is a new variable. The coach said, the nice thing I like about Bucky is he gets to his top speeds early. It's not that much of a top speed. Like, when he accepts the handoff, he bursts and accelerates through the hole and can make people miss in space. And then with White, he said he has taken every detail that we've coached throughout his offseason and applied it. Big emphasis on the running backs being fast to and fast through the hole. But yeah, I don't think the market is properly baking in enough committee risk with this ADP gap between White and Bucky right now.
No, 100%. I mean, it is true that when your top speed is 15 miles an hour, you tend to get there pretty quickly. But, but like, no, I think Rachaad White's one of the worst picks on the board. He's been a bad runner his entire NFL career. That wasn't what made him special as a prospect. He kind of profiled as like a really interesting pass catching back who could kind of work his way into a role more than you would expect for a third round pick.
We're on the clock and we got shut out at tight end again. Sinnott and Juwan came off the board. Whoops. Who do you like here?
I don't mind Demario Douglas at this price, but
we could also do Jonnu as a stack.
Let's do Jonnu.
We have Waddle, basically get that extra stack without Tua.
Yeah, I like that.
I will say right now, the 2v2 on turning Mahomes into Dalton Kincaid and then taking one of the other value quarterbacks probably breaks in our favor pretty nicely.
Yeah, agreed. With the Rachaad White stuff, I mean, like his it's funny because it's like I was a big Rachaad White guy as a rookie. He was my biggest stand that year. I was in on him last year, although kind of more like at ADP. I didn't have a big stand, but there was like a lot of like, oh, you can't be taking Rachaad White on ADP chasing, for example. And I was like, I don't know, like he was fine. Like as a rookie, he established himself as a receiver. That's generally pretty hard to do in a Tom Brady offense where he mostly cares about not getting hit. And he flashed enough that we should be open-minded to it. Then he gets this crazy workhorse role that no one really expected. But he was very inefficient. And now we have 2 seasons of him being an inefficient rusher. And he hasn't been truly special as a receiver. So it's just like, this is the dead zone profile. I know he catches passes, but suspect talent being, propped up by volume in an offense that isn't going to be that good with a rookie addition. Like, that is danger. That's big danger in any round where you're spending real draft capital or there's real opportunity cost at other positions, which there very much is where he's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nicest thing you can say about his price is that it's 2 rounds cheaper than it would have been 2 years ago, him coming off this season where they drafted. Like, that would have been a 3rd round pick in drafts. Hey, this is the starter. He balled out last year from a points perspective. Let's just go back to the well. So the market is factoring it in a little bit, but he also hasn't dropped that much since the draft. And like Bucky Irving's an issue for him.
Yeah, I think he might be 2 rounds cheaper than 2 years ago, but I still think he's about 2 rounds overpriced still.
Yeah, so we're at a 2-5-6-2 right now. We have 3 more picks left. Good at quarterback with Mahomes and Herbert. Our running backs, Big Dog, Little Dog, Henry, and Jaylen Warren. Zach Charbonnet, Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky Irving. Probably time to grab another wide receiver if we got one. Amon-Ra, Debo, Jalen Waddle, Ladd, Keon, Palmer. What do you think here? We can do whatever. ADP doesn't matter at this point.
Let's see. I would be kind of interested in Greg Dortch here as like a little rookie pairing. We could also go tight ends.
Yeah.
Noah Fant.
This feels like it could be a 3 tight end room. You want to go Fant? Just grab him.
Yeah. Sacrilegious loves Fant. He's been kind of, and then Daniel Raz has been a Fant guy for years. So there's some love for Fant in the legendary upside rankings.
I did a 3 tight end build with Shawn on the first draft. We took 2 rookies, Bowers, Jatavian Sanders, and then Conklin. Got another 3 tight end build today. Spent all of the big board season in the first week talking about how elite tight end is the structural edge to push, and then followed it up with 2 3-round tight end builds. But yeah, we'll definitely be getting another wide receiver, and then we can kind of figure out what we want to do with that last pick.
Man, we got boxed out. Can't believe it.
And I'm just mad at myself. That and then, should have probably taken Ben Sinnott or Jawan instead of Bucky. It's back-to-back drafts where the Bucky Irving pick ended up being a misstep in that it made us lose out on the tight end.
Yep.
The draft wants us to take Sky Moore.
I don't even know if he's draftable even in this scenario.
What is his ADP? I'm just curious. Is anyone draft? You don't even have him ranked. He does have an ADP.
Well, we're trying to help people win here, Pete.
Man, this was definitely a draft. Like, look at the ranks. It's just all quarterbacks. Cheap quarterbacks really falling here. I mentioned it on the show, my first solo stream. I mean, I do love Jalin Hyatt, but you prefer Greg Dortch for this team just because of all the rookies?
That was my thing. But I mean, we have Josh Palmer and we've got Amon-Ra and Debo who are going to be fairly consistent. So Hyatt's fine with me.
All right, let's swing for the fences here with Jalin Hyatt. And then structurally, where do you think that puts us? We're at a 2-5-7-3, either a running back or a wide receiver. Do you have a lean?
I lean running back here because we kind of went like Big Dog, Warren, and then like you're already to sort of contingent value plays. Like Charbonnet's got maybe some standalone, but mostly contingent value. So we're really depending on those first 2 running back picks. So I lean running back.
Yep. Look, guys, I'm a stack slappy through and through, but this is like a clear spot where I don't think you force the stack. I think at some point there are players who are not viable selections. I think we raw dog Mahomes here.
We also have a Herbert double stack. And so it's pretty easy to imagine Mahomes helping us get there and then Herbert being the guy who goes off for us in the final. That's what
Davis wants us to take CEH.
Honestly, he's right. That is the pick. We need a running back. We need correlation. I'm going
to put him in the queue and hope someone takes him.
All right. But
I don't utilize.
No, correct.
Star method legit.
Catches passes theoretically. He's a theoretical pass catcher.
Who's the rugby guy?
He's not in the pool.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
No, because we wanted to rank him.
Yeah. I even saw he's already getting a little buzz. I saw an article about him the other day.
Yeah, underdog. Come on, guys. You can't. Chiefs rugby player has to be in the pool. It has to be.
If only to let Davis have like 26% of him.
Just content wise, like what a miss. The content you could have had.
All right. Here you go. This one goes out to Davis Mattek.
All right.
Goes out to Patrick Mahomes. See, Patrick Mahomes hand-selected CH as a first-round pick for the Chiefs a few years back, and now he hand-selected his one stacking partner on this Best Ball Mania 5 team. He said, I don't need Rashi and Kelsey and Worthy and Marquise. Just give me my guy CH in the 18th. That's all we need.
Do you think Davis asked them not to include the Reese Samit just for his own
really
financial well-being?
Reese Samit.
He's like, I can't do it, guys. Please don't include him.
Luis Reese Samit. Is that
Maybe
real?
I think it's Nemeth, maybe.
Is he New Zealand or is he French?
How would Liam cope with the Chiefs winning with a rugby guy? I don't know. It's not that different than what happened last year.
What we really need for the Liam trifecta would be one of the upcoming dynasties drafts the rugby guy who then beats the Bills in their best chance to win the Super Bowl because of these galaxy brain rugby formations. Although it is like, can't you envision, Andy Reid loves having his little trickery, they do like the fake snap.
Yeah.
What if he had one called the scrum and like all of them pile in, they lift him up like they do in rugby, and then they put him back down and he emerges from the scrum?
Wow. I need to see the scrum now.
The scrum, Andy Reid's newest concoction. All right, speaking of newest concoctions, another BBM5 draft in the books for Pat and I here on Best Ball Breakfast. Same with Shawn. Pat and I will be here every Monday morning / afternoon, depending on your time zone, at noon Eastern. We'll kick these off. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert at quarterback, Derrick Henry, Jaylen Warren, Zach Charbonnet, Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky Irving, and yes, CEH at running back. Wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, the rookie steamers, Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, and Jalen Hyatt. And then a 3 tight end build, Dallas Goedert, Johnny Smith, Noah Fant. Don't think this is going to be either of our favorite teams this year. We're not posting this one on Twitter for likes and retweets. How do you feel about this one?
We got boxed out a couple of different times with the stacked, and then at tight ends, forcing a 3 tight end build, forcing a CEH backdoor stack. So that's not fun. But overall, I think this team, I think we survived, right? We got kind of stabbed by the room. They got us right, stabbed us right to the gut in the 6th round. But we're still alive.
Somewhere in Central America, there is a tree. There's also a butterfly who flapped its wings and led us down this path of drafting this beautifully unique, diversified Best Ball Mania team.
Yeah, this will help. We will never build another team that looks like this team. So this team is going to help us to diversify our overall portfolio.
Yes, exactly. I can, this every lineup has to tell a story. This is CH catching 2 screen passes for touchdowns in week 17.
CH being the guy you need. That's what you want to set yourself up for.
Yeah. All right. There it is. Pat, couple things for you. Obviously, you're going to do ADP chasing today. That is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I also know our friends over at the Badge Bros are streaming at 2 p.m. Eastern with Hayden. So if you want a full block streaming, you wrap up here, go get some lunch, check out the Badge Bros with Hayden. Then you check out ADP chasing at 3:30 with Sam and Pat. Obviously, Pat's article up on the site writing about some Central American log. Definitely got to check that out. Anything else?
Thanks for selling that.
No, I am legitimately excited.
No, check it out. It's completely free. It's kind of a fun way of sort of conceptualizing some of the concepts that Sacrilegious has been writing about. And to that point, Sacrilegious is working on another article that dives into these kind of diversification concepts and practices to kind of further dive down that rabbit hole. And I'll also note Steph Miller has a Dynasty article that we'll have out in the next week or so. So yeah, Dynasty rankings updated today. Rookie rankings we're updating. We've got best ball rankings rolled out for DraftKings last week. Underdog rankings updated every day. Working on rankings for FFPC and drafters as well. Hoping to get those out when we get them out.
There you go. Yeah, so much good stuff going on right now. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you're new here, and also the Deposit Kingdom channel. Like I said, I'm going to have a pre-recorded draft video out tomorrow there where I reverse engineered the draft, trying to get these targets that I want to grab now before it's too late, and kind of seeing how that can work in practice if you reverse engineer your draft. And then later this week, working on an update to the Week 17 is All That Matters video. Have been talking with Neil and Leone and Dubner, trying to wrap my head around the implications of this new payout structure and whether we need to be adjusting how we think about optimizing for the playoffs. So having a lot of fun working on that article that video, and we'll have that out later this week. Otherwise, appreciate you guys all hanging out in the chat. As always, go check out ADP Chasing at 3:30 for Pat, for Shawn, for myself. Thank you to producer Tony Mark here in the hopper. We'll see you guys next time.